Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba, back once again, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. We're seeking to have a rather robust, intellectually stimulating conversation this evening. Hope you all are doing well. Happy New Year. This may be, I believe, my first broadcast of the new year. Been extremely busy. As many of you know, I am a doctoral student. I'm in a mode of in the dissertating, right? I'm actually writing my dissertation. And so it's been quite arduous a task, as many of you know who have gone through higher education. Writing is your currency. And so as a result of that, I've had to cancel some of my broadcast, and I do apologize for the viewing audience. But we're here this evening, and I think we're going to have a great conversation regarding what I believe is a rather provocative thesis, right? As many of you know, I tend to try to have provocative conversations to push the edge when we are looking to, of course, galvanize the Black community. And so with that being said, I'm going to get right into it. As you all know, I like to do some housekeeping, as I like to say, and then we're going to get into having a conversation. But the conversation we're going to be having this evening, of course, is being a criminal tantamount to acting right? We know that oftentimes, unfortunately, there's been an assumption, to rather true or false, that many of our people throughout the African world are seeking to act white. Oftentimes, this is something that is stated due to believing that one is seeking to signify or emulate or parrot values, beliefs, customs, mores, forays of the white power structure, and a belief that that will help them have some form of social, economic mobility. However, oftentimes many people do not consider or think about what it means to act white from a negative standpoint. And so we're going to be looking to do that. But before we get started, I have to go over, of course, the ground rules. And you all know that every time we come on, we go over the ground rules. So just a little housekeeping before we get started here at Lumumba Speaks. So it won't take long, but this needs to be done. So as you all know, we welcome diversity of thought here at Lumumba Speaks. Of course, the Black Empowerment Initiative. We believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. We believe in diversity of thought. So you could come on, you could tap in, as we like to say, and you could be part of the conversation. And you do not have to agree with me, myself, or any of the other panelists in any way, shape, or form, one iota. However, we do want to make sure that you do not use any racial epithets of any kind, right? So irrespective of one's geographic location, political views, ideology, or even personal life and behavior, I don't allow racial epithets of any kind to be used here on my platform. As you know, this is a site of Black power. We like to signify Black power, practice Black power, and we know that of the 3 ends of Black power, the first end is, of course, self-respect. We want to respect ourselves as African people, and in so doing so, we want to make sure that we do not in any way, shape, or form use racial epithets of any kind on this channel. Number 3, facts over feelings. Okay, we want to make sure that if we do have a spirited intellectual debate, as I believe we possibly will this evening, we want to make sure that we are addressing the argument the person is making. We want to attack the argument, not the individual person. That's what is known as an ad hominem attack. We don't want to engage in ad hominem attacks. We want to actually attack the argument that the person is making, dissect the argument the person is making. I think that when people do not do that, of course, it can be seen as rather juvenile. And then, of course, last but not least, do not allow anyone to make any statements that are fundamentally or patently false. So what do I mean by that? I always give an example of the great debate between Michael Jordan and, of course, LeBron James. Excuse me, I almost said Malcolm X, and of course, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And we know he has a birthday coming up, and I'll probably do a broadcast on the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King as well. And we know we can't mention Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. without mentioning Coretta Scott King. So we want to put some respect on both of their names. But with that being said, I was at the gym yesterday, getting my Body by Lumumba on, as you all know. And there was a young man who, of course, said that he believed LeBron James is a better basketball player. However, when we had that conversation, I made sure that, hey, if we're going to stick to this, we're going to make sure that we don't make any claims that are patently false, right? So an example of a patently false statement would be to say that Michael Jordan wasn't a better ball player because he only won one championship. That would be something that is patently false. So just something to consider. Then last but not least, we kind of put out a disclaimer before we have these conversations that here at Lumumba Speaks, our mission is neither to exonerate or vilify. Right, it is simply to challenge conventional wisdom, and we examine what has been accepted as fact. Right, so just want to make sure you all are aware that our goal is neither to exonerate or vilify, but simply to challenge conventional wisdom and to re-examine what has been accepted as fact. So with that being said, the link, I believe it is in the description. I'm going to put the link in the chat, but before I do that, I'm going to, of course, give some background information regarding why I chose to have this topic, right? So there was a book I read, I think maybe my third year in my doctoral program, entitled Set the World on Fire. Here we go. Yes, Set the World on Fire. And it was written by Dr. Keisha Blain. She's now currently a professor of African American history at Brown University. I believe Brown is in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. Brilliant sister. She was at Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh before. Now she's at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. So of course she's at the Ivy League. And she wrote this book, Set the World on Fire. And in this book, of course, Black Nationalist Women in the Global Struggle for Freedom, she discusses, of course, that between, of course, the 1920s and 1960s, according to many scholars, this is seen as a lull or of course, declining era of Black nationalism and Pan-African activism. However, Blain reframes the Great Depression and World War II in the early Cold War as significant as a Black nationalism, particularly Black women's nationalism, right? So Black nationalist women's ferment. However, and she traces this from Chicago to Harlem, the Mississippi Delta, all the way to Jamaica, and of course, the UK, the good old UK. So it's a great read. I actually have the book here myself. Let me come out. I actually have the book here myself. Great read. It's only about, let's see here, about 200 pages. Yeah. Including the epilogue, it's about 200 pages. So yeah, 200 on the dot. So it's not a tough read, intellectually stimulating, extremely concise. The sister did her homework, so we definitely want to give a shout out to sister Keisha Blain. She also edited a book entitled 400 Souls. I can't find it. Every time I need to find a book, I can't find it when I'm doing the live, right? But in this book, she talks about that there was a ferment, right? A belief in the early 20th century, mid 20th century, that engaging in criminal behavior was tantamount to acting right, and that's why it was shamed in the Black community. So, of course, I went to a family member. My great aunt is 85 years old, was born, of course, in Dallas County, Alabama. And I asked my great aunt, I said, is this true? I said, I'm reading this book. This sister, she's a brilliant writer, brilliant scholar, brilliant researcher. This is a great book. But I need to know, is this something that you were told or experienced growing up, that you were told that being a criminal, being a miscreant, being a ne'er-do-well was reflective of someone who was engaging in criminal behavior? And the answer she gave me was an emphatic yes. So with that being said, I'm going to put the link in the chat. I want some brothers and sisters to tap in and share with me their thoughts, right? This is something that was the belief, I would dare say, in the Black community, all the way up into, of course, the advent of integration. So I just put the link in the chat, family, so you all can tap in and be part of the conversation. Also, as you all know, when you tap in, you do not have to cam up. Keyword is you do not have to cam up. Also, want to make sure that you are aware that you can use a pseudonym if you so desire in being part of the conversation. So just want to make that aware. But we're asking the question is, being a criminal tantamount to acting right, right? So definitely hope you all can tap in, be part of the conversation, and we can have a robust, intellectually stimulating and vigorous conversation regarding is being a criminal tantamount to acting right. As I said before, this is something that I read. This is Dr. Keisha Blain makes this argument in her seminal book, award-winning book, by the way, award-winning book, Set the World on Fire, Black Nationalist Women and a Global Struggle for Freedom. We know oftentimes, unfortunately, when we talk about and we study Pan-Africanist and Black nationalist liberation movements, it tends to be male-centered. But this is a book that does a great job of illuminating the sisters in the struggle from the early 20th century all the way up to the mid 20th century. So from early 20th century through the Cold War. So once again, Set the World on Fire by Keisha Blain. But of course, the question we're asking here is, being a criminal tantamount to acting white? As I stated before, I was able to speak to an elder in my family who, of course, is 85 years old. And she was able to share with me that this is something that she and, of course, her siblings were told and taught coming up. And so the question is, I want to give this out to the viewing audience. Do you believe that being a criminal is tantamount to acting white? If yes, you could let us know why. If no, you could let us know why. Then, of course, we definitely want to be able to have a great conversation regarding, is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? And as I said before, this was a historical belief in the African American community, and we can even dive into why our ancestors, right, our predecessors here in America, believe this to be the case. So once again, we're seeking to have a great conversation regarding this topic, and I definitely want everyone to tap in. And do not, keyword, do not be square, as they say, right? So definitely want to get people to tap in, be part of the conversation, and we're going to be able to definitely have a great conversation about a provocative issue, right? As I've always stated, we seek to have provocative conversations here at The Movement Speaks. So I think this is another great opportunity to make that happen. So with that being said, I'm going to, the link is in the chat, and want some brothers and sisters to tap in and be part of the conversation. So do not shy away, right? As a matter of fact, I actually had the opportunity, I briefly spoke with Sister Blain on Twitter, tried to get her to tap in, but of course she's extremely busy, and so she wasn't able to do so. But if you are seeking to, of course, be part of the conversation, as I stated before, the link is in the chat and it's in the description. So if you want to tap in, be part of the conversation where we're asking the provocative question, is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? And as I stated before, I came up with this idea of having a conversation or having a show regarding this based on, of course, Keisha Blain's award-winning book, Set the World on Fire, Black Nationalist Women and the Global Struggle for Freedom, where she highlights the sisters in the struggle, particularly during the period of Black nationalism that many scholars argue was a drop-off in Black nationalist fervor and ferment. She was able to show that that was not only was that not the case, but some of the leaders of the Black nationalist movement after the deportation of Marcus Garvey up into, of course, the Civil Rights Black Power movement were, of course, Black women. So we always want to make sure we highlight our sisters in the struggle. But of course, as I said it before, in the text, she discusses that in the Black community, and we're not just talking about here in the United States, we're talking about throughout the world, I dare say, particularly in the Western world, we found that Black people believe that engaging in criminal behavior was acting white. It was representative of acting white. I know that I've taught my children, I've communicated to my children, I dare say ad nauseum, right? I'm sure they would say that in terms of their grades, I would let them know that A is for African, B is for Black, C is for Caucasian. I would tell them not to bring any C's up into my house. So, right. And that we equated being a C with average and being average with white, being white. I know Brother Ta-Nehisi Coates in his book, Between the World and Me, he's even articulated a similar sentiment, stating that in America, white people can be average and have great success, right? And so maybe we can talk about that as well. But the link is in the chat, brothers and sisters. As I said it before, you could give your opinion. You just can't make a statement that's patently false. Of course, you can't use a racial epithet, and we don't want you to. If we have a great, vigorous, intellectually stimulating debate, we don't want you to, in any way, shape, or form, attack the person, attack, of course, the argument. Once again, you do not have to. I repeat, you do not have to cam up to be part of the conversation, and you do not, keyword, do not, under any circumstances, have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym if you would like to be part of the conversation. So the link is in the chat. The link is in the description. You're watching The Movement Speaks here on YouTube, and we're seeking to have a robust, intellectually stimulating conversation regarding a provocative question that I'm posing this evening. And that is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? So please, if you can, tap in and be part of the conversation. I know we have some people watching, some viewers watching, and I'm looking to have a great conversation, intellectually rigorous and robust conversation. And one of the reasons I believe that this is stated is because if you look historically at the history of criminality in America, the face of criminality in America, of course, was white men and women. Right? We're talking about the Pretty Boy Floyds. We're talking about the Bonnie and Clydes. We're talking about the John Dillingers of the world. Right? So the face of criminality historically in America, I would dare say all the way up until the integration actually was, of course, white people and whiteness. We know that unfortunately, oftentimes that Black African people were the victims of extrajudicial violence due to accusations of us being criminal. We also know that many, if not the majority of the victims of extrajudicial violence were African Americans who had some form of social affluence, right? They were able to do well for themselves economically. And as a result, they, of course, met an untimely death. I think of Ida B. Wells Barnett, the Crusader for Justice, who, of course, wrote vociferously against lynching. And, of course, one of her good friends had unfortunately met an untimely death due to having a successful grocery store in Memphis, Tennessee. So we do know that that is an issue. But even with all that being said, and I'm trying to, of course, make Blackness synonymous with criminality, I can even recall that in the movie Rosewood, the Queen Mother that played Aunt Sarah stated that the N-word was simply meant guilty. But yet and still, we know that the face of criminality in America, of course, is whiteness, white men and women. Think of Public Enemy #1, so on and so forth. We know that, unfortunately, oftentimes we were the victims of white, of course, criminal activity and, of course, white vigilantism. So, but with that being said, the link is in the chat, brothers and sisters. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. We're seeking to have a intellectually stimulating conversation regarding a particularly provocative question. As you all know, I always tend to try to ask provocative questions. We know that I had a show, I think that it went very well. We had a concept where we talked about ratchet feminism, right? Many people thought that was something I was pulling out on my derriere. But no, there was actually a thesis that a sister wrote entitled Ratchet Feminism, where they believe that Black women signifying some of the racial stereotypes that came out of course, the minstrel era of being a Sapphire, being a Jezebel was empowering. Don't know how. Reached out to the sister, of course, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and even on Facebook to try to get her to come in if we could have a part 2. Wasn't able to do that. There's another sister who wrote on a rather beautiful article, beautifully written article on ratchet feminism and why it was liberating. We reached out to her as well on her own private website because she's a PhD now, but I was not able to, of course, hear back from her. But if we do hear back from either one of those sisters, we will have a part 2, of course, ratchet feminism and what it means for the Black community. But this evening, we're having a conversation regarding is being a criminal tantamount to acting white. So with that being said, definitely want you all to tap in, be part of the conversation. You do not have to agree. As I stated before, we believe in diversity of thought here. At Lumumba Speak. So you do not have to agree to be part of the conversation, but definitely want you all to tap in and be part of that conversation and share your thoughts. Do you believe that being a criminal is tantamount to acting white? What does that mean for whiteness? What does it mean for Black people to, of course, view whiteness as something that is inherently criminal? I think some members of the Nation of Islam, of course, may agree with that concept and idea. But once again, hope you all can tap in and be part of the conversation where we're going to be discussing is being a criminal tantamount to acting white. So let me see here. I got somebody trying to. So hopefully, we can get some people to tap in. As I said it before, the link is in the chat. I put the link in the chat one more time. And of course, the link is in the description. People to tap in and give their perspective, their understanding. What are your thoughts regarding criminality as well? We do know that from according to some social scientists, that criminality is rather subjective, right? Because the laws, as we know, are made by those in power. And if we want to even look at it from a historical standpoint, we do know that the oldest criminal justice text in the world, the Code of Hammurabi. And you could quote here that the Code of Hammurabi, of course, was found in Mesopotamia, present-day Iraq, nation state of Iraq. And even in that criminal justice text, we found that the laws were biased towards the rich, and of course, desultory to the poor. So this is something that is even historical. This is not something that we can argue is racial in nature, even though we do believe and know, I dare say, that there is a racial slant to the laws here in America. Historically, we see that throughout cultures and civilizations, there's always been a level of not racial stratification, but societies have been stratified. And as a result, those who are in power tend to make laws, rules, edicts that maintain that power, right? So I think this is maybe human nature, as some would say. But with that being said, I don't want to go on all night ad nauseum, right? So the link is in the chat. The link is in the description. We want to have a provocative conversation about it. Well, we want to have a robust conversation regarding the provocative question that I'm asking, and that is, of course, is being a criminal tantamount to acting right? So definitely hope you all can tap in and be part of the conversation. Be here or be square, and we can get things going. So let me see. I'm gonna send this out to one more person and see if they're able to come on in and give their perspective. But definitely want to hear what some people have to say. I think this is a rather provocative question to ask, and I think that we could elicit some rather colorful responses and some ideas that I haven't thought of myself. So definitely hope we can get some people to tap in and be part of the conversation. But of course, we're asking the question, is being a criminal tantamount to acting white, right? That's the question of the day. And as I said it before, we're basing this based on a great book that I was able to read, Set the World on Fire, Black Nationalist Women in the Global Struggle for Freedom by Dr. Keisha Blain. She's a professor of African American history at Brown University, of course, in Providence, Rhode Island. And in the book, one of the things that she discusses, of course, is in the Black community at that time. We were talking about the Black diaspora, the Black Atlantic, that actively engaging in criminal behavior was tantamount to, of course, acting white. Of course, as I said before, I have a family member, elder in my family, who was 85 years old, who shared with me those same sentiments, that this was something that she was taught as a young girl, as a child, that to behave in such a manner was tantamount to acting white. And so then, of course, the question we can even ask, so if this is true, that this has been historical sentiment in the Black community, why is it that Black people are so engaged in criminal activity in the manner that we are now, which is not representative of historically how we've moved and engaged with the criminal justice system? Then, of course, the question would be why, if this is true, of course, and of course, historically this has been verified, then why do we tend to only associate positive attributes with whiteness rather than negative? So definitely want some brothers and sisters to tap in and be part of the conversation. As I said it before, you do not have to cam up to tap in. You do not have to cam up to tap in. Then, of course, last but not least, you could use a pseudonym. If you want to tap in, you could use a pseudonym to be part of the conversation. You may want to, of course, maintain your anonymity. I understand that 1,000%. Many of us have public-facing jobs. We may work with individuals who, of course, may take extreme umbrage with some of our personal values, beliefs, and sentiments. We do know that there have been a number of individuals, right or wrong, who have gone out on public platforms, expressed their personal views about some social, societal issues, and then, of course, showed up Monday to work and were told, hey, we're going to let you go. So definitely understand that 100%, that there are a lot of people who may be moved not to, of course, tap in and share their perspective. But once again, you could use a pseudonym to tap in. You do not have to cam up. I'm the only one I believe is required to cam up. And so, of course, because I, of course, am the host. And so we're just looking to have a great conversation this evening, intellectually stimulating conversation this evening regarding is being a criminal tantamount to acting white. So definitely hope you all can tap in and be part of this conversation, share your perspective. As I said before, we believe in diversity of thought here at The Moment Speak. So you do not have to agree with me one iota, right? You can be completely on the opposite end of the spectrum. And of course, you will be given space to share your perspective. Of course, number two, no racial epithets of any kind are allowed to be used on my platform. I think that it's unbecoming. I also believe that it's juvenile to engage in said behavior. I do know that as a strong, powerful brother who I've had conversations with, and we've differed on this issue, but I do believe that anyone who uses that type of language does not possess the vocabulary to be able to articulate what they believe and what they think. So it's not, I just think it's juvenile. And then, of course, facts over feelings, right? We want you to make sure that if we do have this great conversation that I anticipate we will have this evening, that we attack the argument that the person makes, and what, not the person. We don't want to engage in ad hominem attacks. We want to attack the argument, not the person. Then, of course, last but not least, we don't want anyone to make any comments that are fundamentally false. And so maybe even we'll start a book club. That might be something that we look to do this year. And this may be one of the books that we seek to read, because as I stated before, oftentimes when we are learning about the Black radical tradition of audacious self-assertion, that is Pan-Africanism and Black nationalism, revolutionary Pan-Africanism and Black nationalism, the stories, of course, the conversations are male-centered. And this piece of literature here that Dr. Blain was able to write and publish really gives us a rather eye-opening view of the contributions that sisters made in the struggle, particularly during a time in which many believe that Black nationalism was declining. Black nationalist activism, Pan-Africanist activism was declining. And she's able to refute that position. And we do know that oftentimes as a scholar, someone at highly read, your job is to, of course, ask questions that haven't been answered, provide perspectives that haven't been viewed or thought of before. But she's able to refute the idea that between the 1920s and 1960s, at the deportation of Marcus Garvey, that Black nationalism and Pan-African activism was actually declining. And she's able to show that actually during this period that these movements were being led by and large by women throughout the African world. And so that may be one of the reasons why many scholars and even lay persons or avid readers believe that Black nationalist activism was waning during that time period. Is because the individuals who were leading these movements were, of course, Black women. So that's a conversation for another day. But the link is in the chat, brothers and sisters. If you are able to see the link, I don't know, maybe there may be an issue here, but the link is in the chat. If you can see the link, give me a 1. If you can't see the link, give me a 2. I'm gonna put the link in the chat one more time. So if you can see the link, give me a 1. If you can't see the link, give me a 2. And the link is also in the description. I want you all to tap in, be part of this conversation, share your perspective regarding the provocative question that we're asking this evening. Is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? And as stated before, I believe that this is our first live of the new year. It took me 14 days, but today is the first live of the year. And I also want to give a special shout out to the birthday girl, my daughter, Zaina Malika Lumumba. She turns 13 today, January 14th, 2023. My daughter is a Capricorn, and she's turned 13 years old. So I just want to give a happy birthday to my beautiful princess, Zaina Malika Lumumba. She's turning 13 today. So, but with that being said, we are seeking to have a great conversation. So I definitely want people to tap in. As stated before, you do not have to cam up. I repeat. You do not have to cam up to be part of the conversation. You do not have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym to be part of the conversation, as I know many of you want to maintain anonymity for a multitude of reasons. But definitely want some brothers and sisters to tap in, be part of the conversation, and share their perspective on if acting white is representative. Key word is acting white is representative of, if being a criminal is tantamount to acting white. So once again, as I said before, I don't want to talk out nauseum. I know there's some brothers and sisters in the chat. So tap in once again, give your perspective. You do not have to use your actual name. You do not have to cam up, but definitely want to hear what you all have to say. I think this is a great conversation to start off my first live of the year, rather provocative conversation. And that is, of course, is being a criminal tantamount to acting white. We can even open this up and we can kind of, as long as we stay rooted in, of course, the concept and idea of criminality, we can even discuss some other perspectives and ideas regarding this as well. Regarding, of course, I think of this sociological concept known as labeling, something like that. I can't think of that much. The last time I took a sociology class was over a decade ago. But we can even bring that in. We could talk about some of the power dynamics in terms of naming who is a criminal, who is not a criminal. We know Dr. Amos Wilson has spoken about that ad nauseum on occasion back when he was in his heyday. But definitely, brothers and sisters, tap in, be part of the conversation. Definitely want to hear what you all have to say, get your perspective on is being a criminal tantamount to acting white. As I stated before, Dr. Blain discusses this, of course, in her book, Set the World on Fire, Black Nationalist Women in the Global Struggle for Freedom. And then, of course, as I said before, I was able to reach out to a family member who was 85 years old, and they would share with me that what she wrote in the book, this belief in the Black community that being a criminal was tantamount to acting white, is something that she was told as a young girl in the late 1930s, early 1940s, in the 1950s by, of course, her parents and, of course, aunts and uncles, grandparents as well. So definitely, brothers and sisters, want to get you all to tap in and be part of the conversation and share with me what you think regarding the question, is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? So, and one of the reasons why, according to Dr. Blain, she mentions this in the book, that the belief of being a criminal was tantamount to acting white was because, of course, what the history of genocide against Native Americans, the history, of course, of chattel enslavement, of course, against African people, the history of what colonialism, imperialism, racism, right? These are all seen, of course, by members of the Pan-Africanist Black national community, the Black community as a whole, as what criminal behavior, right? Not to mention contemporary issues, of course, of organized crime, public enemy number one, so on and so forth, that led many to, of course, believe that being a criminal was tantamount to acting white. I think that is rather curious because we know nowadays we tend to, unfortunately, in our community, believe that if someone is engaging in positive, what we would deem positive attributes or behaviors, that is acting white, not negative, right? So definitely want to have a conversation regarding how that has flipped in the last 60 years. So we can argue that in the last 60 years, it's been, of course, seen as acting black. Prior to that, we know that there was a belief that being a criminal was, of course, acting white. So we definitely want to have that conversation as well. So, as I said it before, brothers and sisters, want you all to tap in, be part of the conversation, be here, be square, as they say. The link is in the chat. The link is in the description. And let's talk about it. Is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? This is the first live of the new year. Don't want to go out by myself. As I said it before, we have ground rules. I've gone over those ground rules. We want to get some brothers and sisters to tap in and be part of the conversation. And then, of course, we can extrapolate this to, of course, asking the question, why is this not the case now? Or the past 60, I dare say 50 years. We say 50 years since integration. Why is that not the case now? To where in the community, we do not believe that, we now believe, or many will believe, that criminality is now, of course, associated with acting black. We know the media has played a role in, of course, promoting this narrative as well. And that part of going from being a victim to victor is that we have to be able to deconstruct these narratives and realize that they're not true, right? So Marcus Garvey would always talk about propaganda being used. And that is a powerful tool, a medium used to, of course, destroy people, and it can be even more powerful than open warfare. He mentions this, and then, of course, he argues that this is propaganda to destroy our hopes, our dreams, and our aspirations and beliefs, of course, in ourself. So with that being said, the link is in the chat. Want to have a conversation regarding, is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? Is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? Is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? We do know that this was the belief many years ago, but unfortunately, I would dare say that is not the belief now. And so we want to have a conversation regarding why individuals will believe that to be the case. So, Brother Africa, what say you? Happy New Year. Hopefully you can get situated. You may have me on in the background, so we might need you to check out a YouTube and just be on the stream live, on the StreamYard. So And I'm sure, and part of Brother Jabril's answer when he gives his soliloquy, he's going to state that we need to organize, organize, organize. And I, of course, support that sentiment to the fullest. So, Brother Jabril, what's the word?
I'm having some audio issues, but what were you saying, brother? I didn't catch
Okay.
that.
Well, we were having some lighting issues. I could barely see you. All right.
Dark skin, man. I gotta
Yes.
say, but sorry, I didn't catch what you were saying. I was having audio issues.
Oh, so I stated that I'm quite sure in having this conversation, part of your soliloquy will include we need to organize, organize,
Man.
organize.
Yeah.
And I said that I would second that sentiment. But of course, the conversation we're having this evening, I believe this is my first live of the new year. As you know, I've been working on my dissertation, and it is an arduous task. A lot of reading, a lot of writing that has to go into it. And as you know, this needs to be a rather concise and, of course, intellectually stimulating literature that I'm producing as a doctoral student. I'm someone who is expected to go from being a knowledge consumer to a knowledge producer. I'll say Black Power, right? So I don't feel no power right now. Trust me. I didn't even go to the gym this morning. I slept in till like 11 a.m. That's just tell you how tired I've been. So
that's late for you, right?
yeah, that's extremely late. I don't like to sleep in past 8. So even on a day off. But with that being said, the question we're asking is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? Now you may be unaware, but this brilliant Black sister, she's a professor of African American history at Brown University. Of course, this is the Ivy League school, Providence, Rhode Island. She wrote an award-winning book in 2018 entitled Set the World on Fire, Black Nationalist Women and the Global Struggle for Freedom. And in this book, she highlights Black women leading the Black nationalist activist movement from the 1920s after garbage deportation up into the 1960s. And what we find is that many scholars before Dr. Blain's award-winning book believe that this period between the 20s and 60s was an era of declining Black nationalist and Pan-Africanist activism. We now find that is not the case. However, there's a caveat in this text, which is brilliant. I've read the book. I actually gave a presentation on the book in my doctoral program. Yay, right? Shout out, right? But one thing she mentioned that I was rather curious to see is that she states that in the Black community during this time period, there was a belief that being a criminal was tantamount to acting white. So I have a family member, an elder in my family, who is 85 years old. 85 years old. Shout out to the 85, right? And we ain't talking about Interstate 85. We're talking about 85 years old. And I asked, I said, I read this in this book. Is this something you were told or taught when you were growing up? She says, yes, I was. I was literally taught this by my parents, by my grandparents, by my aunts and my uncles, that being a criminal, acting like a miscreant, being a ne'er-do-weller was acting white. Now, Dr. Blain discusses in her book that the reason why was due to what? White people's history of what? Genocide, colonialism, imperialism, chattel enslavement, and of course, what? A system of social control against African people, right? So this was the example that she gave. And of course, my great aunt was able to, of course, confirm the statement that the sentiments of Dr. Blain, and of course, in this text. And so the question I'm asking to, of course, the audience is, do you believe that being a criminal is tantamount to acting white? And why do you believe that 50 years after integration, there's now the belief or the sentiment that being a criminal is tantamount to acting Black?
That's a great question, because I was able to, because I was just getting in from being out and organizing. And
that's what you should be.
Yeah, for sure. I got a couple brothers to register, so that's
and
cool.
and I like that hat though.
I appreciate that.
Oh, listen, we could do it the easy way or the hard way. But I would need that hat though.
Yeah,
go ahead, brother. Go. I would need the hat for real though, but that's a conversation for another day.
Sister makes the beanies. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's a very interesting question. I'll say it's actually good if we view it that way.
Okay.
The reason I say that is it makes us understand. It makes us, instead of deifying our open enemies and the people who have actively contribute to destroying
Hmm.
African people. We're not completely destroyed yet. As long as I'm breathing, as long as you're breathing, as long as our people are alive, it's not over, right?
Hmm.
But I think it can be a powerful tool because I never even thought about it like that. And I was just thinking to myself, obviously, they're not the only criminals. The Arabs were in the slave trade 1,000 years before the Europeans, right?
Facts.
But I like that sister. Her parents taught her that, right?
Yeah, my great aunt, yes. My
Yeah.
great aunt, remember my great aunt stated that this was the sentiment in the
Mhm.
black community. So this wasn't just something that she
Powerful.
was being taught by her parents or grandparents, but this is something that the community believed. White
Mm.
people are criminals. And
And
that if
that's true.
you are engaged in a criminal activity, you are acting white.
Mm.
Shut the front door. You talking about
Yeah.
boys. Boys.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Right.
I like that. I like that. Yo, I unite with that. And it also, you gotta understand, Dr. Amos talks about it. What does he say? He says Elijah Muhammad was one of the greatest psychologists of all time, right? Because what would he do? He would say the white man. One of the many things he did, right, was say the white man is the devil. It's
Right.
not necessarily saying that he's literally the whether you believe that or not. I tend to believe he is the incarnation of the devil, but you're actually training your people, psychologically training your people to hate the oppressors, to hate the enemy. And I think that's a very powerful tool. And he even goes into how, you know, he's also Elijah Muhammad also was what he was doing was he was also making like bean pie, right? Making
Mhm.
changing the palate of the people to want to buy what we produce, right? So things like that. I like that. I never even thought about it like that because obviously they're not the only criminals, but for black people, if you're acting like as my brother Lumumba says, like a miscreant, you're acting white. I do unite with that. I do unite with that. They have been paramount in the Mayafa, the African Holocaust, and they are inherently criminal, and everything about their history points to this fact. So I unite with that. I'm gonna teach my kids that.
So you stated inherently criminal.
Mm-hmm.
That's a rather powerful statement.
Mm-hmm.
Could you can you provide some facts to substantiate such a
Yeah.
claim?
So if you find a group of people, wherever you find them in the world, they're behaving the same way. They're they inherently aggressive towards other groups of people. Wherever they go in the world, what do? They destroy, they murder, they rape, they pillage. Wherever they go in the world, they did this all over the world. They completely genocided a group of people. You can't find a single Tasmanian brother or sister in the world. They no longer exist because they were wiped out by these Europeans. So we got to understand if and this Dr. Ames, I keep going back to this brilliant man as he states,
Hmm.
if you want to understand the people's psychology, study their history. And what does European history tell us? These people have been nothing but the incarnation of evil. They wherever they go, they destroy, they murder, they pillage, they rape, they steal. So their history tells us about their psychology. Their history tells us their about their nature and how they operate with others and even with themselves. Dr. John Henry Clark has talked about how actually the invention of gunpowder and guns wasn't actually initially wasn't so they could go colonize and destroy and do all those things that they have done. It was so they can defend each other from themselves,
Mm.
right? And these people have fought them. Europeans have fought each other all over the world globally. So yeah, it's these people are just destructive, and the only way and then this really it's a battle for power at the end of the day. The reason they're able to do what they do, it may be because they're inherently evil, as I mentioned. It could also be because, as Dr. Amos put it, could be because they have penis envy. It could be due to all sorts of different things. At the end of the day, all of those things may even be true. But at the end of the day, the reason they're able to do the things that they do is because they have the power to do the things that they do. And how do we counteract that? We gain power. How do we gain power? as my brother Lumumba stated earlier, you know what I'm going to say. We need to organize the masses of our people. That's how we gain power.
Right.
So yeah. So it's all a battle for power. We got to gain that power, brothers and sisters.
Absolutely. So, what about this concept and idea of since integration? There's the belief that what criminality is synonymous with blackness.
Mm.
How did we get here? Why are we here? What effect has it had on our people? And what do we do about it today?
The labeling that we get labeled, or more so what's happening.
Yes, labeling theory.
Labeling. If you have power, you're able to label, right? Having power gives you the ability to be able to label things, like how even the name of our planet, and that's we all just go by Earth, right? But is that what our ancestors called this planet?
Mm-hmm.
No. So the thing with that is yes, it by labeling African people as criminals, you're not only wiring the psychology of our own people to believe that we're inherently evil. Essentially, the way that it's worded out or played out is that we actually inherited all the evil deeds that the Europeans have done, and they put that on us, and we inherently believe. That's why if you're walking down the street, oftentimes when you see a brother or sister walking by, let's just say a brother walking by, oftentimes our people are afraid. When you see a white person coming by, you don't feel that same feeling of fear. Why is that? We don't know our history. We don't know that we're
Well,
afraid of our brothers and sisters, but we're not afraid of the
so,
story.
so let me. I'm going to answer that question. Part of the reason I would argue is the direct personal interpersonal violence that many of our people face nowadays is at the hands of someone who looks like us. That's just the reality.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I'm saying, even knowing the history,
yeah,
that is a reality.
we got it. But we also need to be mindful, and I do unite what's part of what you stated, but we got to understand that criminal behavior, people attack, people do certain criminal behaviors in the where they live.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So Asians do to other. You see what I'm saying?
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But
yeah.
Brother Shabazz,
I see what you're saying.
yes, Brother Shabazz says because the black man is most more likely to accost you statistically. Brother Shabazz, we need you to tap in, be part of the conversation. All the way out there in San Diego, 619 Reggie Bush country, right? So we need you to tap in, be part of the conversation as well. So yeah, that's all I'm saying, right? Even knowing the history, the reality is every racial ethnic group in America are the victims of violence. The individual that has a culture,
their own people, yeah,
85% of the time, irrespective of your racial ethnic group.
You're right.
85, white, black, Asian, Arab, Latino, 85% of the time that mofo look like you. Right? So that's just the reality. So even knowing the history, even knowing the ideology, that's a reality. As I said it before, I unfortunately, as I said it before, have been involved in the carceral state, right? And one of the things that I do know, when you go in, we find racial ethnic groups aligning, gaining solidarity, uniting, looking out for each other. But black folk don't do that in the county or prison. It's every man for himself. They're trying to extort people, get over on them, whole nine. This is even when you're behind the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes to our psychologically, man. Where it's called menticide, right? Where
menticide.
Yes. Well, whether you want to call it menticide, whether you want to call it post-traumatic slave syndrome or post-traumatic colonized syndrome, slavery by another term. But I hear what you're saying, and I think and you and I have talked about this. I think like it's important to discuss these things, but what are we doing about it? That's what I care about most. Like talking to me is just like we can talk about the different things that can cause of this issue, but what are we doing to resolve it?
Absolutely.
Are we actually doing the work? Vast majority of the people that come on these platforms, Brother Lamoon, but they're not doing anything to try to resolve it, but they have a trillion theories, right?
This is true. This is true. Yeah. And I'm not so much a theory person. Of course, I use a lot of theories in my academic literature that I write. But I mean, that's just part of
theory and practice. You need both.
Right, praxis. But and I want to address that because I knew that this was an issue, right? So when I had my children, and as I say that you weren't on, but today is my daughter's 13th birthday. She's a teenager now, right? Lord have mercy, right? And I'm not talking about Chloe Bailey, right? You know what I mean? But I made sure that I inculcated them very early with a healthy Black racial identity. That was the antithesis of what the dominant culture seeks to promote and disseminate to our people, right? I knew that I had to be proactive, right? Focus on a strengths-based approach. And I think that has done some good, right? They're not under my thumb or in my pocket every day as I wish they were when, of course, I created them. But this is one of the things that we need to do, of course, be proactive. I think another thing that we need to do is we need to, of course, and we've discussed this before, we need to treat the needs of our people as holy. And I think part of being able to do that is we need to, Marty, Moose, Militia, you're going to need to cam up. I need to see who you are before I let you on the live. So if you want to be part of the conversation, you're going to need to show your face before I let you tap in. Just going to let you know that. So if you can't do that, I won't let you tap in because, you know, we had some people come on and do all types of foolishness. So
take a screenshot too. You remember last time you said you saw the person?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, that weirdness happened. So
yeah, I don't think this is a real person. So I'm about to get him out of here. So, but yeah, as I stated before, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, you're good. You were talking about your daughter's 13th birthday, and I think.
Oh yes, being proactive, right? So I think that's one aspect. The other issue we always talk about treating our people's needs as holy, right? And one of the things that I think we need to do is focus on industry, individuals being able to make a living. True. We know, unfortunately, in our community, we're just talking about our community now. One of the major reasons why we find, well, I shouldn't say a major reason, but a principal reason, I want to make sure I'm responsible with my words, that we find many of our brothers and now our sisters, being inside behind the wall, engaging in, of course, the carceral state in a very adversarial nature, is that for some reason, and I would argue that this has been going on since the 80s, there's a penchant in our community that if someone is having any type of social, economic problems, the solution is to hit a lick, is to commit a crime, to come up.
Some within the community.
Yes, some.
Yeah, you're not wrong. There's a, and this is the dysfunctionality, that is brought on by oppression, right? Mm-hmm. But like I told you, brother, like we know what the enemy has done. You better than most of us know with all those goddamn books behind you, which is a huge flex. I tell you this all the time.
We always trying to, you know what
I'm saying? But at the end of the day, what do we do to resolve that, right? Mm-hmm. We need to, fathers, I think you and I have talked about this. We need both parents in the household. Mm-hmm. And if one of the parents isn't in the household, then we need the community to step up. And I know you stated at one time, and maybe this wasn't in regards to what I'm stating here, but like, you don't want no other men raising your kids, right? Essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, but we gotta understand, brother, that's not how it was back home, and it's still not how it is back home.
All right, but once again, different context, different situation. In theory, that sounds great. But in reality, and I was just telling someone this yesterday, you have two types of men, in my opinion, who will go and try to actively raise someone else's child.
I know what you're going to say.
A simp and a pedophile. I'm serious here. The third issue is, for whatever reason, just say the father is not in the home. That doesn't mean the father. We know that the CDC did a study showing that Black men, irrespective of our nationality, Black men in America are more involved in the raising and the rearing of their children than any other racial ethnic group of men in this country. Right? So the reality is, Black fathers, even if they're not in the home, and we know oftentimes they're not in the home due to what the court system being extremely adversarial and contentious against us, someone else comes in and is trying to tell our guess what happened? Now your authority is being undermined. And we know, particularly brothers like you and I, our values are going to be what? Drastically different from the lay person walking the street.
True.
You see what I'm saying? So it causes a problem. And we also know, and I can speak from experience, most women, not all, but let me say it this way, responsible one words, modern women will use that as will use it as a tool to undermine your authority as a father. We're not living in 13th century, 15th century Songhai Empire anymore.
But that's yeah, but that's still happening in Africa. The community's still raising them.
Yeah, but that
Obviously, the house was
here, like every man that I know that is raising someone else's child, they've either admitted that this is beta male act behavior or they were a pedophile. Literally.
I don't know.
And I'm hold on. And I'm talking about even members of my own family. We later found out, oh my goodness, he was touching that woman's kids.
That's vile. First of all, we just got a side note. That person shouldn't be alive anymore. Pedophiles shouldn't be.
We've discussed this, and I would agree. But what I'm saying, we have to understand that from someone who engages in that type of behavior, the number one thing they want is a fatherless child, or was a child that doesn't have a dad in the home, because they know what the father is the protection. You see what I'm saying here? So I told my daughter, anytime an adult is trying to be your friend, it's for nefarious reasons. There's no reason why any adult should be trying to engage you. I have a student here at the institution that are right. She's on the basketball team. You know, so I was at the gym one day. You know, I'm always talking trash. I see her there throwing up shots. I'm like, you can't shoot. We ended up develop. We ended up going a little one-on-one. Went to a couple games to support her, cheer in the stands. Yeah, lock her up, score, and all that type of stuff. Right, shoot the ball, all that type of stuff. Right. Her parents were there. The dad says, "Hey, I'm glad that she has somebody here on campus because there aren't a lot of black people on campus, and you support her and stuff like that." I said, "Yeah, no doubt." He said, "So I'm going to get your information for my daughter." I said, "Your daughter ain't got my information." I said, "I'm a grown man. She's 18 years old. She don't know me like that. She contact me. She got to send me an email on my work email. There's a paper trail. So we ain't cool like that." I said, "We are acquaintances. She ain't my friend. What else I have being a friend with an 18-year-old?"
Did he say she's your friend?
Well, it was an assumption that she had my contact information. So there ain't that type of party. So what I'm saying is, even me, I just think that the behavior is wrong-headed. Even me being the black man, I wouldn't even do something like that.
See, that's the
you got an uncle, you got an older cousin.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't. Like I said, I'm not going to do something that I would want someone. I wouldn't want someone coming in and start telling my child what X, Y, Z. And we don't know why this guy isn't present. If the mom was engaging in parental alienation, if she was able to weaponize the courts and make allegations that were false, we don't know what the case. But what we do know, and this is something my dad would tell me, what you do know is that whatever took place, it has nothing to do with you.
Between the child's mother and the guy, okay. Mm-hmm. But if your child is involved, that obviously completely involves you. So
no, it doesn't. That ain't my child. I don't have any legal rights whatsoever. And once again, at some point, that child's gonna tell you ain't my daddy.
But
I don't have to listen to you.
I can't unite with that.
Hold on. I'm speaking from experience. Hold on. I'm gonna let you.
Brother,
hold on. And guess what's gonna happen when that child is doing something wrong, and you seek to correct that child? The mom is gonna tell you can't tell my child what to do.
No. You do it in spite of the mom. You do it in spite.
It's not your child. You don't have any legal rights. You don't have a legal right to do it.
I think you give too much credence and too much power to our enemies.
Okay. Try to discipline a child that's not yours and see what happens. You're going to end up in jail. That's what's going to happen. The only individuals that are able to use any type of discipline are a person who is a child's legal parent and guardian. This is a reality.
I think you're tying yourself to the system. I think you do it in spite. You do this. That's your child.
No, you don't. That's
No.
no, it's not your child. I'm not talking about your biological child. I'm talking about someone else's
Oh,
kid.
I thought you were talking about your biological
No,
child.
no, no, no. You have legal
Or
rights. You can legally discipline your child.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
was like, this brother's tripping,
No, no,
tripping.
no, no. Because I've dealt with it before. Like we went to court, they was like, "Hey, he got a legal right to give his child a whooping. That's his child." I'm
Oh
talking
yeah,
about if
yeah,
it's not. If I'm talking about someone
yeah,
else's
yeah,
kid.
yeah. Yeah, that's touchy. Some
Someone
guy.
else's kid. Now, here's the thing: people don't know this. People always say, "Oh, you're unable to give your child a whoop." That's not true. I can at least speak for my state, in the state of Ohio. And I got the actual court paperwork here somewhere, right in the LL Lumumba Library. That's just just throwing it out there. Right? It states that you can use corporal punishment based on what the child's age, the child's response to non-corporal punishment, the child's behavior, and what the severity of the corporal punishment that was used. Those are the 4 factors in the state of Ohio that give you the right to use corporal punishment. You see what I'm saying? So people be like, "Oh, you can't whoop your child no more." Yes, you can. Yes, you can. This went all the way to the Supreme Court. Yes, you can. Now, if it's someone else's kid, you try something like that, you're going to get put in handcuffs because you don't have a legal right.
But let me ask you a question. Do you think that's how we should be disciplining our children?
Well,
Whooping?
so I'm glad you asked that question. As a parent, I've been a parent for 15 years. I believe that corporal punishment should be a last resort.
Mm-hmm.
It should be used only for what? Egregious behavior. I mean, egregious. Now, when I was growing up, we got a whooping for everything, right? Like literally. But I personally believe So this is the process I use. You do something, you get a stern talking to. You might even get read the riot act, right? Where I'm gonna explain what you did wrong, why it's wrong, and then we're gonna walk through a scenario where you have to say, like, where you Thanos, you click the time stone, and we go back in time, and you're in the same situation. What do you do now, right? The second time you do something nefarious in nature, you're gonna get the same talking to. You're gonna get read the riot act, but now I'm Drill Sergeant Lumumba, and you're gonna be doing exercises. 1, 2, 3, stay with me. 1, 2, 3, keep the beat. Right? Last but not least, if the behavior is extremely egregious, I mean egregious, we're talking about almost felonious in nature, then I might have to tap that behind, right? Now, with that being said, you can't whoop your child when they're 15. Right? I remember I had a conversation with my son, and he was like, "Well, I'm 13 now, so that means I don't get any more whoopings." And I was like, "Well, first off, I never agreed to that." But I said, secondly, I said, if you got to get a whooping now, I said, you're gonna be a mystery. If you haven't bought in now, shit, don't buy in. Or you're muted.
Oh, I was just saying,
Yeah.
then too far gone if I have to whoop you at that age.
Yeah. We might as well listen. What Nige used to say, no hope for the future. We could cancel Christmas, Kwanzaa, Yom Kippur, Day of the Dead, Chinese New Year, Hanukkah, all of it. You know what I mean? So for me, that was the form of discipline I decided to use. Right? Sometimes I even have my children write reflection papers. Because so now there's a analytical, there's an intellectual, there's a critical thinking component being brought into this. Right? I said, well, if you do X, what do you think the consequence would be? Well, I'm in trouble. You might give me a whooping. I might have to do exercises. Right. But what about 10 years from now when you're 25? What do you think the consequence will be? Mm-hmm. How about you write about it? And then, of course, they have to have what? Great penmanship, right? Proper grammar, syntax, cite your sources. I'm Professor Lumumba in this moment. You know what I'm saying? So it's varied, it's nuanced. But personally, for me, right, 2 things. Corporal punishment has to be a last resort, not a first resort like when I was growing up, where no matter what happened, it was bombs over Baghdad or my behind. You know what I mean? And then last but not least, I've never disciplined my children when I was upset or mad at them. I couldn't do it. I chose not to. I would tell them, get away from me. Get away from me. Literally, I would tell them, get away from me. You know what I mean? Because if you're emotional, in my opinion, you may say or do something that can leave leave a lasting scar, emotional scar. Right? So when I was emotional, get away from me is what I would tell them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have teenagers now. I can remember when they was younger, and I'd be upset, like, get away from me. They would just, back up and go into their room. It was so cute, right? They hate hearing stories about when they were little now, but yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I hear that. I mean, I'm just thinking about different things, right? Yeah, because I even think about that. Like when did we start corporal punishment? When did we start beating our children? I
Well,
want. I
what
wonder.
we do know, and I think brother Blain, we talked about this. We have found that corporal punishment was used in many African cultures prior to European encroachment.
Okay, so we're talking about thousands of years ago.
Yeah, motherfuckers. I mean,
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, even now, I mean, if you date some African women, they be beating their kids' ass. Bow, like damn.
Then you can
Like,
make an argument. You can make the argument you can make for that is colonialism.
Yeah, but the thing was, we don't find there being a history of what whipping and all that doing colonialism. Where cats were getting
off the top of my head, I'm sure not like chattel enslavement in the West, but I'm pretty sure this is research I've done a while. I'm pretty sure there was, but I'm sure it's case by case basis, right? Different Europeans did things differently in their creative ways, right? And
hold on, real Sister Shy, we appreciate you being here, sister. I need you to tap in, be part of the conversation. Brother Shabazz, can we know we need some divine, feminine, African, revolutionary, powerful Black woman energy in the mix? And then Brother Shabazz, we need you to tap in as well. But and then the other thing is, and we're gonna get back to the topic, but in the Deep South, in the Southern United States, everybody whoops their kids. Just like everybody owns a gun. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Like everybody, like my grandparents, I'm talking about, dude, growing up, I remember one time I got in trouble. My dad was whooping me, got tired. He tagged my mom in like it was WWF, and she finished me off. This really happened. I was in fourth grade, man. But Brother Shabazz made this comment. He says, if you don't have discipline, the world will corporal punish you.
You're right.
That's similar to a statement I would always tell my children. And I would tell them, if you fail to control yourself, somebody else will. And I would tell them, you're lacking self-control right now. Who's controlling you? They'd be like, you are. Do you like it? No. I said, now what happens when you're an adult and you lack self-control? What happens? I said, the sheriff controls you. It's called a county jail. Grown up timeout. So self-control, self-discipline is paramount for everyone, particularly for African people living in America behind the wall, as we like to say, right? Behind the lines. Oh, you're teaching your children they need to have self-control. You're not letting them be children. You're treating them like white supremacist culture and viewing them as older than they actually are. No, we're not. If you want to go back to classical and even contemporary African cultures, children were taught responsibility as at the moment they could comprehend. Am I right or wrong?
Yes.
Right. They didn't wait till the boy was 15, 16 years old. They were taught responsibility at an early age. So this is something that we need to understand. But of course, the conversation we're having is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? Sister Shaw says, one of my family members hung me upside down and whipped me with a switch. I knew not to do anything really bad again. Wow. I never had that happen, but I've been whooped with a switch before.
Yeah, you didn't. Yeah, they didn't need to do all of that. I don't.
Yeah, that was a bit wild. I wonder how old you were when that happened. You had to probably be 4, 5, 6. You couldn't weigh much to get hung upside down. But now that is wild, right? You could have just had, said put your hand on the bed or something. You know what I mean? But Lord have mercy.
I want to research this really. I actually want to. I probably got to hit up Brother Dwayne. But I want to research this because in African, like I'm continental, as you would say. All African people are Africans. I'm just on the continental side of the game. We're very fast with the whoopings. Somali culture.
I think that's in the diaspora too. Like,
it is.
I mean, you think motherfucker Floyd Mayweather trying to slip punches? I'm serious though.
But the example you give that corporal punishment was around in the past, We're talking about thousands of years ago. I'm wondering, was it the same way? Were they going to it immediately? I don't,
Oh, okay.
but I have to do research.
Right.
I have the research to back up my claims of not thinking they went to that right
Right.
away. But it doesn't match up with how African people behave, right? You can easily see Europeans and Arabs going to that right away because their history shows us this. You understand? But not with African people, right? So, and if you don't do that to other people, why would you do that to your own children? So that makes me think that there was some influence in that, especially certainly in the diaspora, but even on the continent, I believe. But I have to do some research. Probably hit up my
Yeah.
some friends.
Because I did some reading. I have a bunch of books here on Black psychology, and the argument that they made was that Black parents being very hard, very strict on their children was of course derived from chattel enslavement, and that if I don't control you, society will get a hold of you, and it's going to be murder she wrote.
Mhm.
However, the argument they made was that they didn't find a direct correlation between whooping the child and of course being whipped during of course the
They
Holocaust.
didn't find a correlation. Interesting. Interesting.
And I could grab the book right here.
Oh yeah, I'm like there's so like my book list that I have to read is so long, but that's like something I want to research because I'm very interested in that. Because I don't agree with corporal punishment, but
yeah. You don't have children yet, though.
Oh no, yeah, no. I was gonna finish, brother. I was gonna say, I'm not. I'm in between last case scenario as your approach, and I have actually thought about this in the past. Last case scenario or not doing it at all.
Now here's the thing. So all children are different, right? So my son was like me, rambunctious. I'm gonna keep doing whatever. And if I get caught, I gotta deal with the consequences. My daughter, I would just have to admonish her, and she'd break down crying. So every child is different. There are children that you probably never have to do that. But then you have some kids who they're gonna test the bounds. I'm gonna keep it going. You're gonna have to pull up, right?
Do you think the environment bring that out, or do you think they come out the womb like that?
No, I just think children, children, no child is the same. People have different personalities. My sister, as far as I can remember, got one whooping, as far as I can recall, and that's because my dad has like some, what's those jawbreakers? He had a big old thing of jawbreakers in his glass jar on a mantelpiece, and my dad went to work and said, "Don't touch this. When I come home from work, I'm gonna give y'all some." My sister at 9 years old, I was 3, my brother was 6, climbed up on the mantelpiece, tried to grab it, boom, dropped the whole thing, the glass jar broke. So you know what happened when she got home, right? It was murder she wrote, right? So children have different personalities.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So, and like the only 2 times I actually had given my daughter a whooping, and it wasn't, because she's only got a whooping from me 3 times in her entire life. 2 of the times she was following her brother's lead. I told him not to do something. He said, "I'm going to do it anyway." And she was like, "All right, I'm with you." I was like, when you start doing that, what brother has said, no matter what brother said, I'm the king of this castle.
Yeah.
I'm the big kahuna. So every child is different. But let me see, I'll just discipline here. So this book is African American Psychology from Africa to America, the 4th edition by doctors Faye Belgrave and Kevin Allison. So let's say 149. 149. Let's see here. And yes, okay, so it's on page 150. It says, although African American parents use all forms of discipline, spanking is at least used sometimes by the majority of African American parents. Spanking is defined as striking the child on the buttocks or extremities with an open hand without inflicting physical injury. The use of more physical and authoritative discipline among African American parents has its origin in slavery. During slavery, the responsibility of the parent or family was to instill in children that they were to be compliant and subservient slaves. Enslaved parents socialize their children to behave in ways that are sometimes age inconsistent in order to keep them alive. Consequently, African American parents use harsh discipline as a survival strategy. In order to teach children how to avoid violent punishment at the hands of the white slaveholder, adults had to use a less severe but still harsh form of punishment with children.
Can you, after the show, can you send me a picture of that, brother?
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Let me see here. There may be. Yes, I could do that. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's one of those things. That's all I could say. All right, let me get this. So, but yes, the conversation is nope, not the environment. Okay. The conversation is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? So listen, brothers and sisters, we need you all to tap in, be part of the conversation. We're having a conversation regarding is being a criminal tantamount to acting white? And then of course, we want to know why is it that now in the community and throughout America, we could dare say the belief is that being a criminal is tantamount to acting black. So tap in, be part of the conversation. The link is in the chat as well as the description. And we want to have this conversation regarding is being a criminal tantamount to acting white. And of course, why is it that the popular belief now is that being a criminal is tantamount to acting black? And I would dare say that one of the reasons, of course, as we see in the music industry, that criminality is oftentimes signified, promoted, and pedestalized as in vogue. Mm-hmm. I mean, we know what 50 Cent said. He said, what, big old black tech, big old black nine, you know, I clap your monkey ass, homie, black on black crime.
Jeez.
Yeah. What he say? He said, you too light, I shoot your freckles out. You too dark, the infrared show you what the tech about, huh?
You know that shit word for word. You were a big 50 fan, huh?
No, that wasn't 50. That was Nas right there.
Oh, that was Nas, okay.
Yeah.
First one was 50 though, right?
Yeah, the first one was 50. I mean, I grew up on East Coast hip hop. That's all I listened to. Yeah. So that's the question that we're asking, brothers and sisters. Want you all to tap in, give your perspective. As I said before, this is the first live of the evening of the new year.
I'm the first guest for the first live of the new year. I'm honored.
Of the new year. So
I had to keep my word. I told you that I would come to the next few shows. I was out and about. I'm actually kind of super tired right now.
Right. So yeah, and you said that you registered some brothers.
Yeah,
But if you could share a bit about what you helped them register.
Yeah, to our I'm in two organizations. One of my organizations is the IBFA. It's the International Black Freedom Alliance. It's an organization that's based off of freeing Black people, global African liberation.
And if you could put that in the chat, brother.
Yeah, I can do that.
You can put that up for everyone to see, the International Black Freedom Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
So IBFA.
Mm-hmm. IBFA.org.
.org. Yes, IBFA.org, the International Black Freedom Alliance. This is the organization that Brother Jabril Africa is part of. He's a continental African, right? So we don't have any issues with diaspora Africans, continental Africans. We believe that we are one people. We need to, and that we have what? We understand that anti-Black racism is global in nature, and that when we do not coalesce, when we do not work together, when we do not put our resources to, of course, gain the necessary the requisite political, economic, and social power needed to, of course.
It's my bad. It's the IBFA.org. My bad. I usually just give people the QR code to scan.
Okay, the IBFA.org. But when we don't do that, we're simply being played against each other like pawns on a chessboard. Mm-hmm. Sister Shy, appreciate you tapping in.
Sister. It's just a long time.
Absolutely. What do you have to say about this topic?
I'm gonna have to say no to the question because I don't believe all white people are the same. The Amish people, they were fighting against like racism and slavery and things like that. So I don't think I'll say no to the question. I don't think all white people are the same, and I don't think I don't think some of them believed in slavery. So I can't say yes to the question. I don't think so.
Okay, and you will be referring to the Quakers as individuals who, of course, were opposed to slavery even during the antebellum era of American history. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yes, yes, the Amish people. I like they didn't agree with slavery. So that's why I'm saying I don't think I just I don't think all white people are criminals. I don't think all black I don't do like I don't like to stereotype. That's what I'm saying.
You don't like to what? Make broad generalizations about entire groups of people.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So I'll
I
have to say
believe,
no.
I do believe that there will be a rebuttal coming from one of the panelists.
Okay. Okay.
Just want to put you a fair warning, brother Africa.
No, I let the sister breathe,
Uh,
but
Son
but
of no, hey, brother,
yeah,
you said naive talk. I need you to tap in and share why you believe Sister Shy is being naive. So please tap in, brother. I'm gonna put the link in the chat one more time. But please tap in, even if it's just for a few moments, and give and share why you believe that she's that is naivety there, brother Africa.
Yeah, I would love to hear what he has to say because I mean, that's just saying like, just stereotyping black people, like, just black women, like we just all have attitudes, we're all angry and stuff like that. That's not true. So why would
Is-
you
Real quick,
say why would you
so you're saying that that's not true that not all black women have attitudes,
well, okay, like the angry black woman stereotype. I don't
right?
think I mean, that's just like saying all black women like have this angry black woman attitude, and that's not true. So why
So
would I
that's not
stereotype
what you
white
said.
people and say that they're all criminals?
So you're saying that not all black women are angry.
I'm like,
I'm
I
just
don't
asking the question. So you're willing to go on record and state that not all black women have attitudes. Is that what you're saying?
well, okay.
I'm just
We
messing
okay,
with
we
you. I'm just messing with you. Golly. Go ahead.
okay. All right. Well, okay. I just don't want to stereotype a group of people because I know that as a black person, I know that I'm stereotyped. So why would I stereotype a group of people when I know not all of them are criminals? Like, I mean, I I don't know. That's just me. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just different, but
Sister, you do not have to apologize for sharing your perspective. Don't do that. Okay? You do not have to apologize. I will say this, and I'm gonna give it over to Brother Africa. He look like he's itching to give his
no, no.
perspective. But the Trump administration, they argue that what? You fight fire with fire. But go right ahead, Brother Africa.
Sister, I just recommend you look into our history, uh, and our history with these people. You can't say that we've we've lost hundreds of millions. My estimation, and there's different estimations on my alpha and how many Africans have been killed. My estimation out of all of the estimations I've seen, the estimates I've seen, is over 600 million of our people, right? So we got to be very clear. These are people who would cut off limbs, cut off males' reproductive organs, and then raffle them off. Have raffles. You would see them burning brothers and sisters, hanging brothers and sisters, and they're having picnics and they're all laughing. That's their nature. And if we understand our history, and that's honestly the biggest thing I see with brothers and sisters is we don't understand history. So we want to say we don't want to treat these people how we're viewed, but we don't understand that they're the ones who view us this way and who perpetuate this belief system about how black people are and who black people are. But these are the same people you're trying to be kind to, trying to be gracious to, but they never showed you that same grace. And I could
no,
go
I mean,
further,
I
but sister, I just recommend just like study African history, study the history of our enemies. You may not want to call them our enemies, but they are clearly our enemies, and that's what I'd recommend to you, sister.
no, I mean, no, I feel that majority are that way, but I'm saying I don't want to just stereotype all of them because I don't agree that all white people are like that. I'm saying majority are, but I'm not going to say all of them are like that. But I do know the history. I understand like in Florida, they used to feed our babies to the alligators. I understand that. I understand all that stuff. I mean, I do study African history and I know about African American history and stuff like that. All I'm just saying is that I don't want to stereotype a group of people like how people stereotype us, but that's just me. And like I said, I understand what you're saying, but I
Nothing
just
but
don't
respect. I get
want to.
your perspective, sister. I get your perspective. And you don't need to, like, as Brother Lumumba mentioned earlier, you don't need to apologize for anything. That's just your perspective. But I share the sentiments of Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad when he says there are bad white people and there are worse white people, and that's the perspective. By the way,
I ain't gonna lie, that was a good one though.
by the way, I want to say rest in revolution to Dr. Khalid. His born day was a few days ago, so I celebrated that, and some brothers and sisters celebrated that. So
Okay, I'll say. But it's Shabazz, let you tap in and give your perspective. Brother Shabazz. Well, we may be having some technical difficulties, so we allow Brother Shabazz to tap in when he's able to get that squared away. But son,
but let's get your perspective, Brother Lumumba. I want to hear what your thoughts are on this.
regarding
the white people, their history with African people, some, not all, are bad. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So I'm gonna say this. So
most robust conversation, as you say.
So when it comes to education, I've always taught my children about their grades. That A is for African, B is for Black, C is for Caucasian. Don't bring no C's up on my house. Literally, I told them C's are average. C is synonymous with Caucasian. If they act up in school, I tell them that they're trying to be white. I tell them you must want blonde hair and blue eyes. Some of them have brown eyes, but you get the point I'm trying to make. So this is something I've taught my children. And Malcolm X discussed this, that in order to have a healthy Black identity in a vehemently anti-Black country, world, society, that you had to pedestalize Blackness and demonize whiteness. Then at some point there will be leveling off, and a person would just say, okay, I have a healthy Black concept. I don't have to demonize other groups of people to feel good about myself. But especially if you study the psychology of nigrescence theory that was created by William Cross way back in 1971 in his book Shades to Black. Right, this is way back. Matter of fact, see, I'm going into my bag now. You about to call me Kyrie in a moment, right? So they talk about this, right? This, of course, this was written 52 years ago, but as a result, and as a result, I also would give them positive concepts of what it means to be Black. So they would see images, learn history, so it wasn't just rhetoric. It was rooted in something tangible, rooted in reality, right? I personally don't. I see white people on a macro level, and the reason why is because you're going to have individuals who do certain things. John Brown is an individual, right? But his individual act doesn't change what the reality of the whole race, right? We know Dr. Claude Anderson would teach us that racism is a team sport. So that you have active racists and passive racists, right? We know this, right? It's like child abuse, right? One parent is beating the child's ass. The other parent, goes in the other room and act like it doesn't happen. Right, so someone may not actively be engaging in racist acts, but that doesn't mean that they are unaware of these racist acts or that they even try to stop it. This is why the one brother, Ibrahim, wrote the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. So it's not enough to just not be racist. You need to be vehemently anti-racist. I would, of course, say, no, we need to be anti-Black racist, right? But that's a conversation for another day, and then maybe we have a conversation on what it means to be, how to be an anti-Black racist, right? That might even be the title of a book. Shout out, you know what I mean? Let me write that down, right? But this is something to consider. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
So yeah, Sister Shy, you never have to apologize for sharing your perspective, your statements. This isn't a place where you're going to be browbeat, put down, ridiculed, called names, racial epithets. That don't happen over here. This is Lumumba Speaks. This is a Black Empowerment Initiative, and we believe first and foremost, and when we talk about those 3 N's of Black power, the first one is self-respect. So you always going to get respect over here, sister. You never, ever have to shrink yourself. You never have to apologize for something you said. You could tap in at any time and share your perspective because you're welcome here. And once again, we believe in diversity of thought. One of the ways that I believe that you're able to strengthen your position is by learning and reading and hearing perspectives that are different than your own. Why? Because it can help you what? Show up some flaws, some holes in your thinking or logic, right? We know anyone that here ever played sports. I played sports, right? How do you get better? Going up against better players that expose weaknesses in your game. So that guess what? When you get into that main event, when you headline in that pay-per-view, you don't get your ass whooped. I give you a historical example. Malcolm X. He was running through small-time players on the East Coast debating. He was doing his thug thizzle when he was in prison, right? And then he got out, and I think he was debating James Baldwin back in the early 50s. James Baldwin cooked him. This is all in his autobiography. He got cooked by James Baldwin. He had to go back to the lab, said, hey, he exposed some flaws in our argument, the Nation of Islam's argument. Guess what? When he came back again in the 60s, it was murder, she wrote, right? So no problem, sister. You're always welcome to provide your perspective. Brother Shabazz, what say you?
All right, I don't know how y'all gonna be able to hear me. I'm driving.
We can hear you just fine.
So I think it's actually tantamount. I think that's the word you use with being black, due to this media, man. It's due to the media, and it's coming from real crime because black men do commit the most murders by far. I think we make up like over half the murders at this point. But that's coming from media programming, in my opinion. Over time, that's kind of pushed this image. So that's why you automatically look at us when you think about this stuff. And too many of us are embracing this identity and falling into it. You know what I mean?
So yes. So what do you say to people who say that's a weak argument? That argument sounds like black people don't have the ability to think for themselves.
You said like black people don't have to do anything for themselves?
No. Well,
we're participating in promoting that.
Hold on. I said, what do you say to people that say it sounds like black people can't think for themselves if they're allowing the media to program them to engage in what? Committing fratricide?
I don't think anyone thinks for themselves on that type of level. I think everyone is, we're a social communal group, and we follow the leadership, and we follow, 85% of people are going to follow what the top 15 are telling them. And if you're being guided in a certain way, I don't think it's anything about just black people. I feel like propaganda, everyone's weak into propaganda. You could just study corporations and how they sell their products, right? Mm-hmm. They're marketing ideas and putting things in your mind to get you to, order that pizza or get that beauty product or whatever is going on, So it's not just black people who are susceptible to these things. I'm reading a marketing book right now. You know what I mean? Because for my craft. So I know the detail that these people are going into, and I'm a part of these people because this is part of my job, which I'm even in this line because of my politics led me to even pick up a camera. You know what I mean? Because I felt this is something that I had came to the conclusion the only thing we could do was to counter the brainwashing, right? Mm-hmm. And me becoming a master of this craft will help me not only to make money for myself as a craftsman, but to use these skills to help to counter this. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't limit that to black people. Black people are human beings, just like everybody else.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay. So wait, when you say human, so you're not saying that what? Black women are magical and black men are wizards? We're just human beings?
Right. Definitely human being. When I started, my journey, you read a bunch of stuff, you get angry, and you kind of start to, you learn, you fall into some things that are pseudo and stuff like that. But as I read and learned more, and then I kind of ventured out, started studying other people, started studying things, the biggest out of all my Afrocentric and then extending into regular learning of history and things like that from an Afrocentric perspective, the biggest revelation I had was when I realized, I was like, bro, humans are humans. You put them in a certain if you put them in a certain setting and situation, they're going to act a certain way. So when you start to look at that, you can study how humans were put into different situations. And the Chinese man did this in the Opium War, and then you look at the crack epidemic here. It's like these different situations and different people, but they respond in the same way. And that's why I realized, I'm like, man, so you can push drugs on anybody. That's what the British did. They came in, started pushing drugs on people. This is just the same way they did it with us. And I was thinking, I was always racializing everything. And there are racial differences, because of our
And yes, and
temporary.
there are racial
Our
elements to these issues. Yes,
say what?
and yes, and there are racial elements to these issues as well.
There's racial differences, but even that is just related to your recent circumstances. You get what I mean? So your recent circumstances have given you, have given you these tendencies. But in the end of the day, if you change the condition of people over time, they're going to transform how they act. So that was one of the big things I kind of realized. So that allowed me to study different groups of people and different anybody, and you could just look, okay, what caused them to act this way, what happened, and then you could study when your people have been in that situation, or if they are going to be in that situation, you can study those other groups, and that is useful to black people also. I used to just be like, look, black people is one thing, white people is definitely something else, and everybody else is something else, you know what I mean? And we ain't gonna act the same, we not the same. But I started to see similarities in how people respond to phenomena as human beings.
Okay, and could you give some examples?
Well, I just gave the opiate war,
Yes, you did.
in the crack epidemic. Um, and other examples I would give would be like when there's a big imbalance of power, you see people abusing their authority. So like when I was in Yoruba land, if you ever go to Nigeria, in you could go to the city Abeokuta, where Fela Kuti is from.
Hmm.
They have a nice museum there, at Olomo Rock, right? Which is, I don't know if I want to go into the whole history of it. I just want to stick to my story before I forget.
Yeah.
One of the things when I was there, they were telling me about the uh, the abuse of the Oyo, right? The Oyo Empire, and at that time, because the whole city of Abeokuta was created in a rebellion to the Oyo and them gaining their independence. So they were telling me about some of the things that they used to do, how they, the Oyo would come, they were consistently raising taxes because they had superior military strength, and they would go over to people, even rulers at that time, um, and they would just walk up while they're there collecting the taxes and say, you know what, this one right here, I like his wife, bring her with me, and just take people's wives and just go, right, and exploit people. So I notice when there's a major imbalance between people, wherever they are, and if you read Guns, Germs, and Steel, it
I've read it.
talks about, I don't know if you ever heard of that book.
Yeah, I read it like 16 years ago.
Yes, in Guns, Germs, and Steel. I don't know if you remember when he mentioned the New Zealand. It was two New Zealand. They were on small islands out there, and one of them was very violent, and the other one was really peaceful. And when they finally met up with each other, the violent ones dominated the peaceful ones. And it was the same situation a lot of places that you look in history, regardless of race. So I noticed that. I'm like, okay, this is a human nature thing. And that's why that's when I realized, I'm like, okay, things have to be balanced. Because when that imbalance comes, this is what happens. You get what I mean?
Right. And the imbalance you speak
I don't know how many other examples.
the imbalance that you're
Huh?
speaking, no, those are great examples. Examples I am aware of. And the imbalance that you're speaking of is the power imbalance. Yes?
Power imbalance, right?
Yes. Any
Yeah,
rebuttals from
absolutely.
the panel?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like I said, should the white man be tantamount with violence? I mean, yes,
Criminality.
man. When you studied the history, bro, you seen all the things they've done in these last 400 or 500 years. I mean, goodness gracious, bro. Like I just read the secret. I just finished. Well, I'm on a new book now, but I just finished the secret relationship between blacks and Jews, Volume 2.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, man! I mean, these people have done so much of a number on it, and they only focused on this was just basically covering Jim Crow,
Mm-hmm.
because Volume 1 dealt with the Jewish involvement in the slave trade.
Slave trade, yeah. Well,
This dealt
and the
with
thing was, and you know, there was a lot of controversy. I'm glad you brought that book up. There's a lot of controversy about the book, but the reality situation is Jewish people tended to be the primary financiers of the slave trade in terms of insurance companies, so on and so forth in Europe.
well,
So,
okay, they were not only were they financiers, they were financiers. They were a lot of them. They were selling all the things that were necessary. Like for instance, they were selling sheets to the Klan. They were following all the orders. Samuel Gompers of the AFL, the labor, the one that headed, the one that was responsible for basically blocking us out of all the industries and all the
mm-hmm.
jobs after slavery ended because we had all the skills. This guy's Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the Confederacies. They were in Congress. They were everywhere. They were in every single part of everything that had to do with the oppression, the brutality. They even had some in the original Klan, because when the Klan started from a rebel, an ex-rebel soldier gathering up other rebel soldiers, and there were many Jewish rebel soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So they were even there. Like they
Mm-hmm.
were all over the place, not just financing. And then a lot of, like, for instance, think about it, a lot of the financiers, including Rothschild and his family, they got their money off cotton and to get the extra money to even become banks,
Yeah,
because they made their money off cotton.
Lehman Brothers is another good example.
Exactly. The Lehman Brothers.
Barclays, Goodyear Tire and Rubber, all of these companies gained their fortune off, of course, black wealth, black labor.
Yeah, and the Lehman Brothers was like mostly cotton, just
Mm-hmm.
directly cotton.
And I learned about this in what is it? How Europe underdeveloped Africa. Yeah, Roger Rodney talks about a lot of these issues.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's just when you look at that, then you look at the mafia stuff that they did. You look at,
Yeah, matter of fact, there was a Jewish mafia group, muscle group in a Jewish mafia. Guess what they were called? Murder Inc.
oh wow, yeah, back in the
Yeah,
day, huh?
and the record label took the name from that group.
Yeah, see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All that stuff that they did. It's like now we're the only ones associated with it, but they've been doing this stuff since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
I actually did a show. I did a 3-part series back before I really kind of blew up. And if you watch it, make sure you hit the like button, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, as well as the notification bell. Please subscribe. We're at 2K. We're trying to get to 10K. We can't do that without your help. But last year I did a 3-part series on combating the carceral state. And one of the things that I talked about is that when you look at the early 20th century, the face of criminality was white people.
Yep. Yeah, when they built the first penitentiaries, it was for white
Yeah. And then unfortunately, after integration, we know that
people that was acting up.
Yeah, after integration. So,
Say that again?
Would you like to provide a rebuttal to what Brother Shabazz had to say? Brother Jabril.
Oh, I didn't hear. I didn't catch that. No, I mean, what the brother brought up earlier is what I'm still trying to get through. But he did also say later on that the stuff that Europeans have done to African people is crazy. But how can you also then, brother, say that we're all the same? You got to understand, different groups of people are different in many different ways. The whole ideology that there's a human race, which is also stupidity. I mean, the human species. Not saying that's what you said, but when people say that's like a pet peeve of mine. But that we're all the same except for our skin color. It's lunacy. Psychologically, we are different. The type of different foods that are actually good for our bodies are different. We are very, very different, right? And you can make an argument, yeah, at one point in time, all African people before they left Africa were the same, sure. but a significant change happened to different groups of people that left Africa, right? So I think we need to be clear about that. But can you please go into how you can say that we're all different, we're all the same outside of, I think, brother, you said, I'm paraphrasing, outside of circumstance?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We have the same nature as human beings. There's a not the same, right? We have a different nature, but what I mean is, in term when I say in terms of our response to phenomenon and situations, you get what I'm saying? So if you put a bunch of people in a situation where they're hungry, there's not much to eat, and they got to take from those people over there, you're gonna get a marauder style of a that tribe is going to become raiders and marauders, right? They're
And
going to become
brother,
like
real quick,
Kanimba Nu.
brother
Huh?
Shabazz, very quickly, if I could, here we
Sure.
use the term ethnic group rather than tribe, because of course that tribe is used as something that connotates, it's a pejorative term that connotates what individuals who are primitive and lacking what civilization. So just here,
Oh
let
well,
me,
I think tribe also it like denotes like a small.
yes, but we we
Yeah.
we prefer to use the term ethnic group here on this platform.
Uh huh.
Okay.
Okay, I was thinking more in terms of like a small village. I use the term tribe. I guess man, I could find a different way to put it. Like for me, right? I can't call the Yoruba nation a tribe when it's 40 million people, 44 major. It has all type of. You get what I mean? But there are some smaller tribes. If it's just you got a few hundred people, what's the proper term for that? Like a small
Ethnic group.
tribe, huh?
Ethnic group. Ethnic group.
Even a few hundred, like something
Yes.
really
When
small like that.
on my first day in my master's program of African Studies, the head of the program told us that if you use that term in any of your papers, you would get an F. And that the reason he gave us was why that term is pejorative and it connotates what? So primitive and lacking civilization and culture. So here at Limit Weeks, we
Okay.
like to have our activism coupled, of course, with scholarship.
Right.
Right ahead.
Okay. I mean, but ethnic group is fine. But even the point I was making was that when you're in that situation, because we had raiders and marauders on the continent too. Like I just mentioned, look up Kanimba Nu, look up some of these warrior groups. And you could say it was Islamic influence, but we had situations like that too. So what I'm saying is when you're responding to phenomenon, there's a human nature inside of us to where you can see similar responses from different people. And like I said, we are different due to us being separated and in different conditions. And you could even see that by looking at us physically, right? What white people changed. I don't know. Or do you believe in the theory of evolution? Do you understand that as true? That question's for Jabril.
Yeah, yeah, I do. That's actually something that I haven't sat and thought about since I was more into religion, if you will. So since I've been conscious, brother Mufasa, that's not something that I've actually sat down and thought about. But yeah, I mean, different animals show this to be fact. So yeah, I do.
But so the only thing that changed the humans into different things is them being in different situations for over periods of time, right? In the same way you change, if you can go from A to B or A to C, you can come back from C to A, right? Given a different circumstance, and that's the nature of humans, adaptability. So
Yeah, but I don't agree with that. I think the European is too far gone, and you can make an argument for the Arab is too far gone. Um, if you wanna re-engineer going backwards, un de-evolutionizing them, go on ahead. But I don't. It's too far gone. And also for African people, we shouldn't. That's not even things that we should even be worried about. Why are we worried about about if these people can change. Nah, bro. What's done is done. We're African people. We need to worry about ourselves and getting ourselves out of the condition we are currently in. And we're in this current condition because we lack power. So instead of, pontificating if these people can change, we should worry about how we can get ourselves out of this position. That's where I stand on that. I don't give a fuck, to be honest.
No, well, the reason is relevant is because if you accept, if you understand that humans respond similarly given certain phenomena and stimuli, then you can include these things in your analysis. So now, instead of just studying strictly, oh, we got to go back to African culture, you can study anything and relate it to the situations that will come up for Black people in their future. And you can learn, okay, this happened to the people in Papua New Guinea. This happened to the Europeans. How does that situation relate to something that may happen to us? And how can I add this into my analysis? When you're in this super, we're a different species type of mentality, I feel that you're not going to use that because you're going to be like, oh, wait a minute. Those are different species of people over there. So we can't learn anything from their past and what happened to them. That's why I think it's critical.
I hear
Not,
what you're saying.
I wouldn't say trying to change
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, okay.
So let
Okay.
me ask this question.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
So let me ask this question to everyone on the panel. Do you all believe in racial essentialism? Meaning that particular racial ethnic groups of people have certain defining behaviors and characteristics and attributes.
Yes, I do. I think race is oversimplified. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a difference between me and the Maasai. You know what I'm saying? But even with it being oversimplified, I would say yes.
Okay, what about you, Brother Jabril? Then, of course, Sister Shah.
Yeah.
And I love Ash, Sister Ash. I see you here in the comments. Hope you can tap in, sister. We need that duality. Get another strong, another powerful African queen to get in the mix. So hope you can tap in, sister. I know you're out there in San Diego as well. So you and Brother Shabazz might want to link up, and that way you all can engage in some powerful community building.
Who in San Diego and I don't know who they is?
Sister Ash. She said Pan African professors will be going hard. So absolutely
Love Ash.
tap in.
Well, ask her if she was at the World Beach Center for Kwanzaa.
At the
let us
World
know in
Beach.
the comments.
Yes, you can let us know in the comments. Oh no, hopefully she can tap in and she better tell us herself. So
okay,
Brother Africa.
Yeah, I vehemently agree. History shows us this. Different groups of people react to different things differently. Different groups of people have different nature, as you will. That's the term I was looking for, nature. I do believe that for sure. And brother, we could say that was due to the evolution or de-evolution, if you will, of different groups of people once they left Africa. Maybe they needed to evolve for their current, where they their environment, if you will. So yeah, I vehemently agree. Different groups of people are inherently different natures for sure.
but I don't want to step on brother's question because I know Marie has to answer. But could we say that ethnically within the Black race?
So I'm gonna let Sister Shy give it. She's gonna
Okay.
Yeah, and then we can come back and have a round robin round two.
Yeah, I agree that we are different. That like I don't know. I just believe we're different. I do believe that we're different, but yeah, I'll let Mufasa go ahead and talk. But yeah, I do agree that we're different.
Well, I had a question. I just wanted to know what Jabril thought about that.
So real quick, so the reason why I asked this question because one of the core tenets of critical race theory is anti-essentialism, right? The reason why I brought this up is because historically we have seen that those in power have changed the ideal essential nature of particular racial ethnic groups to benefit those who are in power. For example, at the turn of the 20th century, the first day of Kwanzaa is December 26th. December 26, 1908, Jack Johnson, also known as the Galveston Giant, won the World Heavyweight Championship. He became the first Black person to win the heavyweight title as a boxing title. all of the boxing prognosticators stated that he was going to lose because what? The belief over 100 years ago was that black people were inherently cowardly and yellow belly. This was the belief that black people were essentially cowards. And this is why we were able to conquer Africa, colonize Africa, and enslave millions of African people. That ain't what they say about us today. So I would make the argument rather audaciously that no, I do not believe in essentialism.
But when you say that, in another episode, you were saying that white people are gonna white people or something to that effect.
Well, yes, I say yes. Let me make the claim. Let me make the statement. I stated that I expect white people to be white people like I expect a dog to be a dog.
That's what I'm saying. But is that not admitting to racial essentialism?
So what I would say is I like you putting me on the spot, but it's your bass. So this is what I would say. I believe that white people on a macro level, when given a chance, will engage in behavior that is harmful to me as an African person. This is what I believe. It's just what I believe. This is what, rather, if it's actively or passively, I believe that this is something that can and will more than likely be done. This is what I believe.
But okay, but how is that not racial essentialism? You're applying.
Well, no, I think it's a bit of bigotry and prejudice.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And
I believe the same thing, maybe for a different reason, though.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I believe that it's a bit of bigotry and prejudice.
Yeah, I believe they're going to do it because it's in their benefit, and
right. Yeah, and I would agree that. I would agree to that.
And the power imbalance is too big between us. And you know, somebody said a simple thing to me years back. It was one of the most profound things because I was waiting on them to say something deeper. But they said the most important reason that people hurt you is because they can.
Yeah.
Or he said that's the most important. He was like, when you're trying to get to why someone did something,
because they can.
The most important reason is because they can. That's the most important part that you need to focus on.
I was talking to a sister once, and we were talking about domestic violence, and I said, if someone's putting their hands on you, it's not because he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's because he knows you ain't gonna do shit about it. It's that simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they can. It's really that simple, right?
Exactly.
So, matter of fact, I can remember. This is a true story. I was a freshman in high school, right? So y'all better not laugh at me either. Y'all better not laugh at me when I tell y'all this story. So my freshman year in high school, I was 4'9", 79 pounds. And the basketball team, I was very, very small. And the basketball team, we had like a top 5 team in the state. We went deep into the state tournament. We almost made the Final Four. And we lost in the regional final. But 2 of the basketball players had picked me up and were turning me upside down and were dumping the money out my pants, right? So, of course, they were doing this because they could. Somehow, some way, my brother came around the corner. Now, my brother, as a junior in high school, was 6'2", 200 pounds, muscular. He came around the corner. They immediately put me down, started apologizing profusely, right? So that's an example of what power. My big brother showed up and they was like, oh no, we were just playing with him. We weren't trying to cause a problem. Please tell your brother that we didn't take any money from you, that we were just playing. Like literally, they were begging my brother not to physically assault them.
Right. Wow.
That's an example.
Wait a minute though, because you glossed over this. You were 4'9" and under 100 pounds?
My first day of high school, I was 4'9", 79 pounds. I was the size of a 4th grader.
How did you skip grades?
I was a year ahead.
You were 12 years old or 13?
I was 13 when I started high school.
That is crazy, bro. When I was a freshman, I wrestled 171s on varsity.
Yeah. Matter of fact, when I started 7th grade, I was 11 years old.
7, so 11, 12. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I was 11 years old when I started middle school. So and the thing was, quick segue. My parents kept taking me to these different pediatricians. Why is he under height? Why is he underweight? Because I was like mad, like my sister 5'8", my brother 6'2". What the hell going on? You know, y'all kept telling me I would finally get taller. This hasn't happened. And my first day of high school, one of the teachers had asked me, "Excuse me, young man, what school do you go to?" I looked like it was in 4th grade. And I was like, "I go here." My brother's like, "No, he really is in high school." They're like, "That boy looked like he in elementary school." And my parents took me to doctors. I kept having to do blood tests. I was on a special diet. I had to take iron pills. And my parents one day was like, "We're going to have to just tell." So at the end of my sophomore year, I was 5'1". At the end of my sophomore year, Brother Shabazz, I was 5'1". And I remember my parents told me, they had a meeting, just them two in their bedroom, was like, "We're going to have to tell our son that he's not going to be tall." And that summer, I shot up.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I was just a late bloomer in terms of going through puberty.
Yeah, I was say my daughter, 13, she bigger than that.
Yeah, my daughter just turned 13 today, and she's 5'6".
I just took her to. We just went to Tijuana today to get her braces. People, she's so tall, they think I'm with her.
Right.
Hello, is this your girlfriend?
Wow. But yeah, my son, he's 15, he's 6'2". So I was just a late bloomer. But when I ended up finding out, my parents didn't tell me this to my 35th birthday, but they told me I was a preemie. So that may have had something to do with it.
But Jabril, what did he answer my question in terms of is there differences? Do ethnic groups within races, particularly the black race, create different tendencies and everything that he mentioned in the racial essentialism definition?
What I would say off the top of my head, given this a thought for the last couple minutes, I would say that the differences that do exist are very minute compared to other races of people. That's what I would say. Minute compared to other races of people. There's differences even within the Asian race, every race of people. There's going to be that difference. But I think between different races of people, I think the difference is drastic, is what I would say.
Like, we'll see. The difference between us and them is the species started in Africa, and I don't know if you ever studied Charles Darwin or any of these different biologists, right? But you know that where a species came from, it's always going to have the most diversity, right? So the tallest people on Earth are in Africa, and then the shortest people on Earth are also in Africa. So
Right.
You're going to tell me that there's a small difference between the Twa and you, or the what's the name of that the Hottentots in the southern Africa region, and Somalian,
The Dinka people.
yeah, the Dinkas, them two,
Then
in
you
Sudan,
have the ethnic group that are in the Congo, who the pygmies.
right? The Twa,
Going to be very small, but in part
pygmy.
of that is
Okay,
based
now if
on
you
the
want to talk
environment.
about denigrating,
Yeah,
pygmy is a
part of that is
denigrating
based on,
term.
of course, the environment, living in, of course, the rainforest, and the proper term is rainforest, not jungle, right? As opposed to the Maasai, who live, of course, in East Africa, high altitude, very warm, so their bodies are longer to deal with, of course, environment. So,
But this is what I'm saying. These differences, they're major differences. Race was just some shit
so are
white
we
people
talking
made up.
physiological
But yeah,
differences?
you're talking physical difference, brother. That's
Whatever
yeah.
type of difference, what I'm saying, with any difference, like when you're dealing with a group of people like the Maasai who are nomadic, and then you're dealing with hunter gatherers, then you got people who are building civilizations. Like, those are three different natures, right? And three different lifestyles. And
Three different lifestyles. Not, I wouldn't say necessarily natures, but
I mean,
it also depends on how you define nature. But go ahead.
I'm just, by extension of how you're living your life is gonna, your whole lifestyle is different. How would you say that the nature of a nomad, in a civilized, tribe? I mean, civilized, I guess they're both civilized. Maybe I need to find a different term. But how is their nature the same?
I didn't say their nature was the same. I'm saying that the
Or similar?
differences aren't, yeah, the differences aren't as drastic between different races of people. And all I'm going off of, and what I'm going off of, excuse me, is history. different races of people's histories, what I'm going off of, and how they interact with other groups of people. So these different groups of people that you're telling me about, I haven't seen them. And you can also make an argument that it's based off of their condition or the environment they live in, but I haven't seen them, any of them, do what Europeans have done. I haven't seen them kill hundreds of millions of people globally, right? I haven't, or the Arabs. I haven't seen them, also because the Arabs as well were a part of my Alpha as well. It's just not the Europeans alone. I haven't seen them do that, and that's what I'm going off of. That's
I haven't really
essentially what
seen
I'm going
nobody
off of
really did
history.
that though. You know what I mean? Before that,
The
I think
Europeans and the Arabs.
yeah, I haven't seen really anyone. Even them, they didn't do
But
it.
no, you can make an argument in for Asians, or more so, I should say, Genghis Khan's people. What were they called again?
Mongolians.
Off the top, Mongolians. Yeah. So that was a thing. So Asians also have a history of that. So
And then how?
and they
What do you
went.
say about Rwanda?
You talking about
The
the thing that
genocide.
happens between the genocide? I would
Yeah,
say if you study that history, that was actually instigated by Europeans. That's what I
it
would say.
instigated, but it was carried out.
Yeah, it was carried out by them, but it was instigated by Europeans.
Uh, it was without question it was instigated by Europeans,
That's a fact.
but I don't know. That's
But
I don't know. Does
did
that
they have
excuse it?
to do that? Did they have to
Yeah.
kill each other? Like, did they have to do that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, did they have to do that? Like, even though it was instigated by
Even that
Europeans,
word
why did
instigated.
they have to kill? Why did they have to kill each other? That doesn't. And I'm like, just like here in the states, in different cities, you have black men killing each other. Why do they have to do that? So I don't know. That's
I would say colonization had a huge impact on that. Destabilizing of people had a huge impact on that. But no, I'm not at all justifying what happened between, and I consider both of those groups my brothers and sisters. I don't, I don't think, I don't think it's, I don't think it justifies it saying that, that Europeans instigated this. But I think that we also need to be clear that Europeans instigated this, but we also need to chastise our brothers and sisters that went about and actually, killed in my opinion, their brothers and sisters. They don't view it that way. They view them as their enemies. But if we study that history, we'll see that who
Mhm.
ins- who and the same thing happened in Somalia, man. The same exact thing. Clan warfare instigated by Europeans. I mean, mere fact that the civil war that happened in Somalia was the cause of the West's instigation. I mean,
Mhm.
they've done this, and if we study our histories, they've done this all over the continent.
It's also known as proxy wars.
Mhm. I can understand why we're discussing this, but I still don't think, even if the Europeans disappear, if the Arabs or the Middle Eastern people, if they disappear, the Asians disappear, I still don't think there will be peace on earth, because I think black folks will still fight each other. I'm sorry. I just even if it was
Yeah,
just the black race on earth, we would still be fighting each other. I'm
yeah, because
sorry. That's what
you're not, you gotta stop apologizing. You have nothing to apologize for. You're stating your opinion. I don't disagree with that because we're psychologically menticide. We're psychologically ill people, right? So them disappearing, if they disappear tonight, that doesn't change our psychological.
Well, but
That
you know,
doesn't change
I mean, we
African
fought before
psychology.
they got there.
some people will make the argument
No,
that we were fighting each other before Europeans came to power.
Yeah, we
that's
fought.
true.
So
Tribal.
the argument can be that it has nothing to do with menticide. I'm not. I'm just listen. I'm just playing white devil's advocate right now.
White devil's. It's hilarious when you say that. But no, yeah, the warfare between different groups in Africa did happen. That happened all over the world. So if you want to say that's a a what's the term I'm looking for? Because I want to say human, but Europeans, the way I classify humans, they don't classify as human to me.
So
The
how do
way
you
that they
classify human beings?
behave, huh?
How do you classify human beings?
I would say, essentially, my frame of thought is, and we go back to nature. We brought this up multiple times. I think the nature of a group of people, if another group of people are so far removed the way that other groups of people behave, I think there's something different. They're a different thing. And then we talk about Darwinism, we talk about evolution. I think that they inherently are different. So if you want to say that they're a different species, if you want to say that they're a subspecies, or if you want to say that they're the exact same thing, it's just the condition. I don't know, but they are inherently different, and the way you want to classify that is the way you want to classify that. But we are inherently different.
Yeah, but to say they're not human, I guess you mean that rhetorically.
Well,
I would
well they do have. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Well, Asian and white people, well, they do have, and now small amounts of black people, they have it too. So I'm not going to say just all Asian and white people, but they do have Neanderthal. I don't know if I'm saying it. I might be pronouncing it wrong. Sorry. Neanderthal. White people have that, and then Asians they have Neanderthal and Denizen. Oh God, I'm pronouncing it wrong. Denizen DNA. So I don't know if that has something to do with it, but I just know that African people, they're the original humans. They don't have Neanderthal DNA, but small amounts of African Americans have it because we mixed in with them. I mean, well, we didn't mix in with them, but because of what happened in the past, rape and things like that, we do have small amounts of it because I have 1% of it. I have 1% of Neanderthal DNA, according to 2023 and Me. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. I'm just putting it out there. So I'll just be quiet.
No, you don't need to be quiet, sister. That's actually a very interesting thing. Great point that you brought up, and that I've actually thought about in the past. Genetically, yeah, they do have Neanderthal admixture. Could that have something to do with it? I'm not sure, but that is an argument that some scholars, if you will, have made. So
Yes, there's a book on it called Iceman Inheritance.
who
And
wrote that? I think I've heard of that. Who wrote that?
Dr. John Henry Clark provides the foreword.
Okay.
Yeah, hold
And
on.
it's
It's a
John
white. It's
Henry
a white
Clark
dude.
is co-signed.
It's a white dude that wrote it, right?
Iceman Inheritance by Michael Bradley, Prehistoric Sources of Western Man's Racism, Sexism, and Aggression.
I've been told it's a pseudo book.
I've read the book. What I will say is this. What Dr. John Henry Clark said in that foreword wasn't pseudo, though. I mean, he was snapping on that thing. We're talking about bars for days, right? So,
Right.
but it's a stretch to say the least. I'll put it that way. He's stretching. I'm talking about he's doing some hella yoga stretches in that book. And a part of the issue, and Brother Shabazz talked about this, is that we find throughout the world that individuals, particularly before the age of enlightenment in world history, were engaging in behaviors that, of course, we would find as extremely problematic, to say the least, right? Unbecoming, I like to use that term, right? So this is just a reality. For example, we know that unfortunately, based on how we think now, in West Africa, West Central Africa, that there were human sacrifices at times where thousands of people were sacrificed at one time, right? In many African nation states and ethnic groups. So everyone has a sordid history because that's how human beings were coming out of the out of the Middle Ages.
Do you have some good literature on that? Because I was told also that a lot of those sacrifices were, like, for instance, there'll be human sacrifices, but in the context, when you put them in their proper context, these are like criminals or certain people, and they're cleansing the land with their blood. I don't know if you have
Yes,
a
that is
literature
some of
reference.
it. That is some of
Yeah.
it. Brother Dwayne Omuwale is the greatest scholar that I know in terms of African history. That is some of it, but not all of it. Right? Some individuals were just being picked at random.
I know the Dahomey were doing mass the enslaved people.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is true. So I mean, it's just some things, right? But like I said, when you look at this from a contemporary context, everyone's gonna see it as a negative, right?
Yeah.
We hope so, right? We would hope contemporary people see these things as negative, but that isn't always the case. So I just think that's something to be mindful of. But once again, we find these type of what we would consider from a contemporary lens atrocities taking place by what we would call racial ethnic groups throughout the world prior to the era of enlightenment. And Marcus Garvey even talked about that. Marcus Garvey said, well, their history isn't any more primitive than ours is, right? He says they were in trees and all type of crazy stuff too, right? So we find that this isn't, that's why I kind of get away from this concept of essentialism, right? Because it's like everybody was doing some, what we like, I'm gonna use some urban street vernacular, right? Very quickly, doing some fuck shit back in the day, right? When I was undergrad, they used to say, man, Bakari got hood PTSD. Every now and then they come out, right? But yeah, back in the day, everybody was doing some fuck shit. You look at the history, it wasn't like we were what's the term I want to use? Living in Atlantis, where everybody was in the caves. I mean, that just ain't what it is. And the thing is, when you get to a certain point, you're able to have you don't romanticize history. You just accept it for what it is.
Yeah, that's a critical point. But you can't do that right away.
Right.
Because there's just too much, you know what I'm saying? Like, even like for me, if I would have read the book I just finished at 22 or 24 or 25, when I was still, I would have I would have been way too emotional from what I was reading. You know what I'm saying? Because I was still angry at that time.
Right.
Really angry at that time.
Iceman Inheritance, Prehistoric Sources of White Man's Racism, Sexism, and Aggression by Michael Bradley. So if you all are interested in checking that out, that's the book right there. What is your Shabazz? How old are you now?
I'm 35.
Oh, okay.
And I'm still angry, don't get me wrong, but I know how to look at I know how to observe all this stuff. I've seen enough, you know what I mean, to this point where I could just look at something, step over the dead body and just look at things stoically, you know what I mean? In terms of history, in terms of anything.
Essentially, you're desensitized, is what you're saying?
Yeah, intentionally though. Intentionally over time, intentionally, because you'll get more out of things when you get out of this thing. Oh, these white beasts and now I can step into the white beast's mind and try to understand his mindset and gain insight from the other side instead of just looking at these animal species and No, I want to know what was Christopher Columbus thinking. I might need to use some of that. Let me think about it. What's going on? Why did they rule it in that way? You know what I mean? Another thing that changes your perspective is being in positions of power. When you're coming up, you're young, you ain't really done nothing yet. You don't understand leaders and how they move until you're running businesses and you're in charge of people who need the checks you cutting to feed their kids, and you got to run that. You know what I mean? Or you're managing 50 direct reports and you're accountable to an entire store. You go through these times where you're on the other end of you're leading other people. So people are looking at you like the man, quote unquote. These things gain perspective. So as you go through life and you see things, you can get more insight in what you read and how you study.
So I had a very long day. I have to get to sleep. So today's the day that Nana Dr. Amos Wilson transitioned January 14th, 1995. So I wanna honor him. He's meant a great deal to me, and where I am now, he's by far my favorite scholar. One of my heroes for sure. I want to leave you guys with something that he wrote. It's
Okay.
very important. As Dr. Amos stated in The Falsification of African Consciousness, check out that book. I recommend buying it from his actual corporation, African World Info Systems.
Hmm.
You can find them online. But essentially, he states, so as I stated earlier, history contains both progress and regress. However, regress at this point in history will not be a situation where we will be able to fight the battle all over again. Regress at this point in history essentially spells annihilation for Africans, not only in America, but for Africans the world over. We need to resolve this, and the way we do that is by coming together and organizing and gaining power. This is a fight for power. The reason, as us three have brought this up, the reason they're able to do what they do is because they have power to do so. So we need to gain power, and how do we do that? By organizing, organize, organize, organize. I'll leave you guys with that. Peace and Pan Africanism. Peace out.
No doubt. Appreciate you, brother. So yeah, I'm allow everyone to give final thoughts, and then we can close out. I don't want to keep anyone up too long, especially because we're here out here on the East Coast time.
Well, I would just say that we have to really interrogate this issue of us constantly promoting ourselves and promoting criminality and going along with this whole this minstrel show that we're a part of, and we just we gotta get into that. You know what I mean? Because we could blame the people that are putting these things out there, these images, but in the end of the day, we can't continue to play along with this at this point. We got to find some way to stop this madness. You know. Because this the brainwashing that's coming from this is keeping us locked in this box, and it's also promoting it's promoting out to the rest of the world to look at us like criminals and violent people, and it's promoting to our youth that, hey, you're supposed to be a criminal violent guy. You know,
Right.
like people still watch DJ Vlad, which he's a very disrespectful. I can't stand his channel. I used to watch it a lot, so I realized over time what he was doing.
So what do you think he's doing? Because I don't watch it. So if you could, put me on game, I would appreciate that.
Well, what he does, what he does is he runs a true crime show in the subcategory of the hip hop industry. So he brings hip hop artists on, and he asks them as many questions about criminality and their past and what they've done and what they've seen. He tries to get people to get on and talk about literally murdering people and all these things. And he constantly makes it about what crime, doing this. What do you do? I was in the street. I was selling this. I was doing this. People even admitting crimes to this dude. And he constantly bashes and badgers people with these questions. So when they go on there, they're talking about criminality all day, right? These are people's favorite rappers. And it projects out an image of people seeing people that they like always talking about criminality. It projects an image of black people as fucking buffoons and idiots.
Yeah.
And it also makes you think like, hey, this is the cool thing to do. You know what I'm saying? And he focuses all his line of questioning is to try to get that image.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I'm gonna play white devil's advocate very quickly. The black people that go on the show can say, hey, I don't want to talk about that. No matter how many times he asks, they can say, I'm not going to discuss that.
And that's what he says, and that's what a lot of people say. But you know,
it's true though.
It's true, but there's two things are true at the same time. You don't have to answer, but he also doesn't have to ask. People say, right. Oh, that's like saying, because he's not just asking, bro. He is interrogating.
Listen,
right? And that's like me saying, we know when detectives ask you questions and interrogate you, they're aggressively trying to get information out of you to get you to expose yourself. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing he's doing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So let me say this. I've been interrogated by a detective before. And guess what? They ain't getting nothing out of me. And I was
no. I hear what you're saying. They didn't get you, right? But they get people, and their intention is to get people.
This is what I'm saying. White, black, yellow, brown, but we're talking about black folk. If you're dumb enough, in my opinion, to fall for the Jedi mind trick, that's on you. If you're stupid enough to go on a interview that you know it's going to be disseminated to millions of people and discuss the crimes you've committed, your dumb ass deserve to be in jail.
No. But
I mean,
we can't say
real.
that it's leading a lot of people directly to jail. You know what I'm saying?
Listen,
Maybe
like I
through
said,
investigation.
if you killed someone and you're willing to go on a show, I don't know how many people subscribe to his channel. Let's say he got 500K subscribers, and you're dumb enough to go on that show and answer a question saying you killed someone in 2013. You deserve to be in prison for being stupid as hell.
No, but that's not the point, right? People admitting crimes is not really the issue. It's a TV show essentially, right? And the show is constantly putting people in this light, whether people are committing real crime or talking about real crimes or whatever is going on. Because I don't know of anybody directly going to jail from what they said on there. It's
I've
maybe
heard
been
that
a few
people have.
people.
I've heard that people have.
I'm okay. So you had people who said things, like ARAB and a few other people, right? But they haven't given exact detail, like something that exactly got them locked up. I haven't heard of anything like that. Like, hey, yeah, we shot them from, we were on Fifth Avenue at 5:30, and we shot in that direction, and we shot this person. You know what I'm saying? I haven't seen something like that.
Oh, I mean, I saw we're gonna have to just agree to disagree on this one, because like I said, you couldn't get me to admit to doing something I did do. You know what I mean?
No, but this is what but think of it this way, right? If every single show on TV has black people doing gangster shit, talking gangster shit every day, right? That's going to project a negative image, whether the stuff they're doing is true or not.
That's a fact.
So on Vlad TV, if constantly your favorite rappers is talking street this, street that, I did this, I seen that, that's making you think that I have to be involved or loosely affiliated with this type of behavior, and it's constantly being shoved down their throat. Whether people are admitting real crimes or not is irrelevant.
So I would say
propaganda.
I would say this. I would push back against the term "have to be involved." I would argue that it makes the behavior in vogue, but not have to, because you don't have to do anything, right? So I would argue that it makes the behavior in vogue. Like I said, 50 Cent said what? Big old black tech, big old black nine. I clap your monkey ass, black on black crime. My favorite artist of all time, Nas, said what? You too light, I shoot your freckles out. You too dark, the infrared show you what the tech about, huh? Right? So in vogue, it makes it in vogue because it's signifying criminality, black on black crime, black fratricide. But I never felt I had to do these things. And I even listened to this music when I was a teenager.
Yeah, but you're a bad example because you was doing street shit, so something happened.
But it had nothing to do with it. But it had nothing to do with the music.
How can you say that? How did you figure it had nothing to do with it?
Because I know my person.
I mean, but what I'm saying, then what did it have to do with it? I'll give you an example.
Which I had relatively little means. Right? And I was like, shit, I want to eat.
Yeah, but that's what is being pushed into your brain by listening to all this information. It's assisting that identity and that idea.
I'm sorry, so we can agree on that it may assist. So Colton says Vlad is not Colton, you need to tap in. I'm gonna put the link in the chat, and I need to tap in.
He said he's not deep.
No, hold on. So that you can expound on this point. So Colton says Mufasa is off point. First of all, Vlad is not the only one who introduced the rappers on his platform. The rappers are the one who volunteered information. So Colton, hey, I'm gonna stay up for you to tap in, and please give your perspective on this, because I think this is a great conversation that we can have. And I know you out here on the West Coast, so it's only like what, 8:33, 8 o'clock or something out here for you. So please, Colton, I just put the link in the chat below your comment. I want you to tap in and come on. So, but like I said, for me, if you're willing to go on any platform and volunteer that you engage in criminal activity, and what's the term that they use? The statute of limitations hasn't passed. You dumb as a bag of rocks. I can't help it. I mean, you deserve.
Yeah, but I think you're missing my point. That part is irrelevant, though, Lumumba. Or do you understand the point I'm saying? It doesn't make a difference if people. Let's say nobody incriminates themselves directly, but they give off the implication of them being, they talk about street shit and they talk about what they've seen and they talk about some things they were involved in without incriminating themselves. Right? It doesn't matter if they incriminate themselves. They're
Well,
giving off
if they're talking
they're
about
giving off
something
this
they were
propaganda.
involved in, they are incriminating themselves.
No, not true, because the statute of limitations could be up. Or I'll give you an example. There's a dude named Bankroll Fresh. Was a rapper in Atlanta. He was killed by a dude. I forget the guy's name. He was killed by this guy. After this guy's death, Bankroll Fresh's death, Vlad invites his killer onto his show to sit there and smile with a bunch of literally like stacks of money in front of him, smiling, giving an interview. Now, the dude didn't. Okay, and then the guy, he actually got off on self-defense, right?
Okay.
Because the guy was shooting at him first, and he shot back. And
that is self-defense.
That's self-defense, right? But it still was street stuff, right? So he talked about something without incriminating himself, giving to his true crime propaganda show, adding to Vlad's true crime propaganda show.
Okay.
Black people are a bunch of savages who kill each other and sell drugs and rap about it all day.
I see where you're going with this.
This is a propaganda channel, is what I'm trying to tell you.
We see the same thing with the Maury show. Folks going on there making spectacles of themselves. The only issue is the onus should be on us because we're choosing to go on the show. But
it's on both of us, is what I'm trying to say. Like, because people are like, oh, you don't have to answer it. Yeah, but Vlad doesn't have to ask it.
Well, so here's the thing, though. And the reason why I'm not focusing on them, because like I said before, I expect white folk to be white folk, like I expect the dog to be a dog. So I'm not focused on them. It's on us. It's like going into a boxing ring and complaining about the guy throwing a punch at you. What did you expect was going to happen? Because that's my perspective.
Yeah, but he's in our culture, though.
I don't care. I don't care if he's in my house.
This is what I'm saying, Lumumba. If I offer your son some drugs on the corner around, he trying to get home, and I offer some drugs
if you offer my son some drugs, I'm gonna catch a case.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Both of them, and if your son takes them, he gonna be in damn trouble. He's supposed to do what? Say no. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be held accountable for trying to sell him drugs. You see what I'm saying? Both people got to get it. And I'm saying Vlad shouldn't be getting a pass for doing that stupid stuff, regardless of what people are, how dumb people are.
Who let them in the culture?
We let him in the culture.
That's our fault.
Yeah, we let him in the culture. I mean, he grinded his way into the culture.
Yeah, that's our fault then.
He grinded his way into the culture, but I mean, and I think from what I know, he did stuff like that. He did he always wanted to do stuff like this. He did a documentary on a rapper named Mac Dre. If you're from California, you know about him. Okay. And he was talking about their bank robberies and all these different type of stuff. This is just the type of stuff he's into. But we don't look at it. We just look at it, oh, it's cool information, it's fun, it's this and that. But we don't look at this as the type of stuff that makes us, what's the title again? What's the title of this show?
It's being a criminal tantamount to acting white.
Right. It makes us tantamount to criminality. Vlad TV, stuff like that is doing it.
It's not just Vlad. Synonymous with criminality. There's actually a book, I believe, entitled Born Criminal. Matter of fact, I might have it behind me here. You can go right ahead. Let me see if I got it in the history section.
And it's a response to that person that was saying, oh, he has other people, whatever. I haven't watched Vlad in years. So what he's doing now, I don't know. I know
I've never
years back. Oh no, he does good interviews in terms of he gets certain information out of certain people. So I used to watch him religiously. But over time I was just like, bro, why do you keep asking these people these questions? Why is it always got to make people, I'm like, dude, why can't you just ask them questions about the music, questions about their life? It always has to be about selling drugs, who got shot, bringing people on. Like, could you imagine if you lost a family member and then somebody brings on his killer, regardless of the circumstances? I mean, his killer to smile and talk about it.
Right.
He brings killers on there all the time. He brings people on there to detail killings.
I guess he want to do like Shine said, look, let's get to the facts and not the hype. Like who got snuffed or who got knifed, who keep getting struck but don't never strike, hope the beef go away when the feds indict.
Right. Yeah, I don't like
One
that
of
too.
those things. So yeah, but I guess the brother isn't going to tap in. Definitely want him to tap in so you all can have that conversation. But I think this is a great show. It's being a criminal tantamount to acting white. We do know that unfortunately, oftentimes in today's day and age, criminality is now synonymous with blackness. And we know that many of our people not only seem to embrace the concept of being a criminal, which seems in vogue to many in the hip hop community, but also tend to what signify the behavior for reasons that I would argue are nonsensical. But with that being said, appreciate everyone tapping in. Make sure you hit the subscribe and like button, hit the notification bell, like, share, subscribe, like, share, subscribe. So next time you all know what to do. I'm going to do a show on Monday where we're going to be honoring the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Want you all to tap in for that. Then we're going to be doing a show later in the week regarding intersectionality as well. But until next time, y'all know what to do. Always bet on black. Peace.